Chapter 18. Charge. Everyone, do not face the scale bear head-on. Everyone, assist Miss Chinuel. On the wide martial arts practice platform, more than 40 young male and female students were besieging a 20-meter-tall scale bear from all sides. As a first-level great demon with astonishing defensive and destructive power, even under the attacks of nearly 50 people, it was still so violent that no one dared to face it head-on. This was the content of the Mammoth Martial House's assessment. Every group of students fought with the scale bear and did their best to display abilities that satisfied Lu Su and the other examiners. Of course, what was the standard that satisfied them? No one knew. The beloved daughter of the great general of the Western Sea is indeed amazing. A teacher in the audience nodded in praise. Among the first group, only Miss Chinyu can break through the scale bear's defense. Teacher Lu Su, when do we call for a stop? It's still early. Let's wait a little longer. Lu Su's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Yu Chinyu, who was as nimble as a butterfly, with some interest. This level of attack is nothing to the scale bear. Roar! The scale bear continued to let out a frightening roar. Its angry roar even caused the stage to tremble slightly. Yu Chinyu calmly stepped forward with nimble steps. The sword in her slender hand blossomed with a dazzling white light. Sharp sword chi flew out and struck the scale bear's huge body. Piece by piece, the hard scales were shattered and scarlet blood spurted out. Attack its wounds. Yu Chinyu's red lips opened slightly as she spoke. Understood, Miss Chinyu. Everyone understood. One by one, they followed the others' instructions and began to attack the places where the scales of the bear were shattered. Cold light flashed, and sword shadows flashed. Without the protection of the scale bear's scales, everyone could easily stab the sharp weapons in their hands into its flesh. The group of people used their advantage in numbers, sometimes creating a diversion, sometimes beating around the bush. After fiercely attacking the bear, they quickly retreated. This method of fighting was very effective. In a short while, the scale bear's body was riddled with wounds and dripping with blood. The appearance of such a scene caused the other young students who had yet to participate in the assessment to be extremely shocked. As it turned out, there was nothing to be afraid of. It was not as difficult to deal with as he had imagined. Miss Chinyu, I really admire you. We will definitely win, huh? A young man, standing not far from Yu Chinyu, laughed loudly. Yu Chinyu frowned and replied coldly, It's too early to be happy. Roar. Just as the voice faded, the furious scale bear raged. It stood up on its two legs, emitting a fearsome aura of violence. The expressions of the surrounding people changed again and again. That little bit of injury just now was not enough to heavily injure the other party. However, the corners of Yu Chinyu's mouth rose slightly. I've been waiting for this moment. Buzz buzz. In an instant, a strange energy fluctuation was released from Yu Chinyu's body. Strands of pale green light gathered and surged in her left palm. Spirit Vine Trap, Yu Chinyu lightly shouted. Her left hand stretched out, and a dozen or so vine-like light beams immediately flew out. In the next moment, under the astonished gazes of the audience, the dozen or so vine light beams quickly wrapped around the scaled bear's limbs, neck, and torso. Kacha! The entangled scale bear could not move. Its sharp teeth gnashed and the muscles on its body bulged. It wanted to break free, but it was firmly entangled. The surrounding people were all astonished. Yu Chinyu's strength was at the 8th level of the channel opening stage, and she could actually trap a rank 1 demon. Chu Hen, who was in the rear of the battle, was also slightly surprised. His eyes focused, and accompanied by a faint burning sensation, a faint purple light surged in his pupils. Buzz, buzz, immediately after, Chu Hen's visual environment changed. The space faintly distorted, and the demonic eye locked onto Yu Chinyu. The flow of true essence in her meridians was completely presented in Chu Hen's mind, and within Yu Chinyu's body, there was the silhouette of a tree. The vine power that entangled the scaled bear originated from that silhouette. Ancient tree, martial body? Chu Hen muttered to himself. No, it's the battle body. Chu Hen instantly retracted the power of the demonic eye. He was secretly amazed. The ancient tree battle-bodied bloodline limit, the 8th level of the channel opening stage. This Yuchinyu was indeed a genius that everyone admired. While everyone was still in shock, the dozen or so vines had already tightly bound the scale bear. At the same time, Yuchinyu's pretty face turned pale. After all, the scale bear was only a rank 1 demon. Yuchinyu must have used up a lot of true essence to use this move on it. Now, attack the white fur in front of the scaled bear's chest. Yuchinyu said coldly. Yes. One by one, everyone jumped up and rushed forward. They raised their weapons and attacked the white fur in front of the raging scale bear. So that's how it is. The examiner Lu Su lightly nodded in admiration. The other instructors of the giant elephant martial house also expressed their admiration for him. From the beginning, Yuchinyu knew that the scaled bear's greatest weakness was the white fur in front of its chest. Therefore, she had been looking for the right opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Because the scaled bear had been crouching to attack with all 4 limbs on the ground, there was no chance at all. When the bear stood up in anger, Yuchinyu immediately seized the opportunity to use the vines to fix the beast's body and restrict its movements. In this way, the scaled bear's weakness was completely exposed in front of everyone. Everyone present could not help but marvel at Yuchinyu's intelligence and strength. Kill! At the same time, a dozen or so faster young students had already rushed in front of the scaled bear. One by one, they leapt up and stabbed the weapons in their hands into the white fur in front of the bear's chest. Hiss! The sound of sharp weapons piercing through flesh was clear to the ears. The scaled bear's eyes widened as it bared its teeth and let out an angry and painful roar. More than a dozen sharp weapons stabbed into the body of the scaled bear at the same time. Dazzling blood spurted out and instantly dyed the white fur red. Success! Haha, perfect! A young student could not help but laugh. Just as the first group of students thought that they had completed the assessment and were feeling complacent, the spirit vine on the gigantic body of the scaled bear suddenly exploded with a bang. The chaotic power of true essence wantonly splashed outwards, and green dots of light filled the air. What? Everyone turned pale with fright. Yuchinyu's delicate body trembled, and her momentum rapidly weakened. She could not help but involuntarily retreat. Roar! Without waiting for the audience to react, the scaled bear that had broken free from its shackles also flew into a rage. A pair of huge scarlet eyes flashed with an ominous light. It raised its huge bear paw and swept it towards the young students in front of it. The unstoppable attack was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves. A dozen or so students were suddenly blown away. Bang, bang. One after another, they fell to the ground, spitting out blood, unable to get up. Angry, the scaled bear was completely enraged. Everyone present couldn't help but frown. What was going on? That power is not enough to make the scaled bear lose its ability to move. After all, they are too young. They have not even waited for the enemy to fall before they began to be complacent. The examiner Lu Su shook his head with a hint of regret in his eyes. If they had not stopped and launched the second and third round of attacks, they would definitely have been able to kill the scaled bear. But because they were happy too early, they let their guard down, causing their advantage to collapse in an instant. Roar! In a rage, the scaled bear frantically launched a counterattack. One by one, the young students were slapped by its giant paw until they vomited blood and flew backwards. The situation was reversed in the blink of an eye. The original 50 people continued to fall, and in a few moments, there were less than 20 left. Damn it! Seeing the situation spiraling out of control, Yuchinyu clenched her jade-like hands and bit her lips. Her eyebrows were filled with anxiety. Suddenly, Yuchinyu turned around and coldly asked, "How long are you going to watch from the sidelines?" The audience was startled. Looking over, they saw that the person Yuchinyu was pointing at was none other than Chu Hen, who had been standing on the sidelines from beginning to end. Is it that the guy who wants to fish in troubled waters? From the beginning, he has been standing there, too scared to make a move. Humph! This kind of person is actually qualified to participate in the giant elephant martial house's assessment. He doesn't have the ability, and yet he dares to step onto the high platform. What a disgrace. It was not only the first group of students, but even the audience had opinions about Chu Hen. Yu Qinyu's almond-shaped eyes were wide open. She angrily glared at Chu Hen. Her angry appearance was also very moving. Even if you don't have the ability, you shouldn't just stand there and watch. Everyone is risking their lives. Don't you feel embarrassed? In response to Yu Qinyu's accusation, Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows slightly raised as he calmly spat out a few words. Wait a little longer. What did you say? Don't speak for now. Yu Qinyu was so angry that she really wanted to stab Chu Hen a few times. Miss Qinyu, be careful behind you. At this moment, an anxious cry reverberated across the stage. What? Yu Qinyu's pretty face paled as she hurriedly turned her head around. She saw that the scaled armored bear had already rushed in front of her. Its huge body cast a shadow under the sunlight, and its ruthless aura was extremely malevolent. Under the horrified gazes of the audience, the scaled bear opened its huge mouth filled with sharp teeth and pounced towards Yu Qinyu. In an instant, everyone's expression changed. In their panic, they began to curse Chu Hen as a piece of trash. If it wasn't for Chu Hen, Yu Qinyu wouldn't have been so careless. Yu Qinyu's beautiful eyes trembled uneasily. Just as the scaled bear's huge mouth was about to bite down, a determined young figure nimbly appeared beside Yu Qinyu like a dragon. In the next moment, Yu Qinyu only felt her shoulder being held by a strong hand. At the same time, the treasured sword in her right hand was also taken away by another hand. This is where your true weakness lies. With a faint chuckle, with a whoosh, the sharp treasured sword tore through the air. Like a ray of light, it flew out of Chu Hen's hand and forcefully stabbed into the angry bear's mouth. On the 7th day of the new book, I received a total of 50,000 rewards for my brothers. Today, I will add one more chapter. It's just a small chapter, not enough to thank my brother for their support, but it's a small token of my appreciation. After all, I can't add too many chapters to the new book. The editor has requested that before the book is published, 2 chapters a day is enough. So, brothers, please bear with it. I will temporarily add 2 chapters a day. On the day when the book is published, I will definitely explode and let my brothers have a good time. Thank you all for your support. Chapter 19. This is where your true weakness lies. Swoosh. With a faint chuckle, Chu Hen threw the treasured sword that he had snatched from Yu Qinyu's hand. The sharp treasured sword tore through the air and flew like a flowing light. In an instant, it pierced into the big mouth of the scaled bear. Roar! A furious and pained roar immediately reverberated across the high platform. In an instant, under the countless stunned gazes of the audience, the scaled bear that had been baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in front of Yu Qinyu's was forced to retreat. In the next moment, Yu Qinyu's felt her shoulders loosen, and before she could react, the young figure beside her suddenly flashed out like an arrow that left the bow. 7 kill, Dark Dipper Fist. Chu Hen leaped into the air. Rich Qi rapidly gathered in his right fist. The fierce wind caused the airflow to become especially chaotic. Bang! A heavy muffled sound reverberated in everyone's ears. Chu Hen's fist, which contained the strength of 9 bulls, solidly bombarded the scaled bear's lower jaw. The violent impact immediately caused the scaled bear's open mouth to close together. With a sharp hiss sound, blood splattered in the air. Everyone in the audience widened their eyes. They saw a sharp sword penetrate the scaled bear's mouth and come out from the back of its neck. The surrounding crowd could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Each and every one of them was stunned. Just now, Chu Hen had thrown Yu Qinyu's treasured sword into the scaled bear's mouth, and then attacked its lower jaw, causing its 2 mouths to close together. At the same time, when the 2 mouths were closed, under the pressure of strength, the sharp treasured sword pierced through the bear's throat. So that's how it is. Several of the examiners also had a sudden realization. Even the main examiner Lu Su's face was filled with amazement. Although the scaled bear's defense was strong, it could only protect the outside of its body. But Chu Hen did the exact opposite. He attacked from the inside of the scaled bear, and this series of actions was seamless and smooth. His timing was just right. Roar! The scaled bear let out a mournful and deep roar. It staggered a few times on the platform and finally fell powerlessly onto the ground. Its warm blood quietly flowed out along with its life force. At this moment, the entire square was silent. Everyone's gazes towards Chu Hen had changed. They'd originally thought that he was a coward trying to pass himself off as a fake, but now it seemed like they were gravely mistaken. Seeing the raging scale bear fall, the students of the first group heaved a sigh of relief. Yu Qinyu's beautiful eyes were filled with complex emotions. She looked at Han Shun, who was not far away, and could not help but feel an indescribable sense of shame. After a brief silence, Lu Su and more than a dozen instructors in charge of the assessment went up the martial arts platform one after another. The crowd came back to their senses one by one. The students of the first group all looked at Lu Su with expectant eyes. Lu Su only faintly smiled. His gaze lingered on Chu Hen and Yu Qinyu for a moment, and he said in a clear voice, "The first group's assessment has ended. Before noon tomorrow, we will announce the list of those who passed the assessment at the academy's entrance." Lu Su paused for a moment and then said, "Those who have finished the assessment can continue to stay here and watch the next assessment, or they can choose to go back and rest. Next is the assessment of the second group. Everyone, please prepare yourselves." Because there were too many people participating in the assessment, the giant elephant martial house would generally announce the list of selected students the next day after all the assessment had ended. The students of the first group stepped down from the platform one after another. The corpse of the scale bear was also cleaned up by the internal staff of the giant elephant martial house. Soon after, a dozen-meter-tall iron cage was transported over by several people. Roar! Locked in the cage was a big tiger with white eyes. Compared to normal tigers, this big tiger was almost 10 meters long, and even its fur was a dazzling gold. Its ferocious aura was not the least bit inferior to that of the scaled bear. Golden Flame Tiger, it's another Class 1 great demon. This fellow's defense is not as good as the scaled bear's, but it's faster. Fuck, please don't call me in the second group. The giant elephant martial house's assessment only had one checkpoint, but the difficulty of this checkpoint was equivalent to the series of assessments of other academies. Previously, it was the scale bear, and now it was the golden flame tiger. No one dared to be negligent. Students who had finished the assessment could go back and rest, or they could continue to watch. After Chu Hen walked up to the high platform, he did not linger and went straight towards the entrance of the martial house. The second group began to take attendance. Below the platform, a member of the martial house respectfully walked to Yu Qinyu's side and said in Li Mao's voice, "Miss Qinyu, your sword is still in the scaled bear's mouth. We will need some time to take it out. If you want to go back and rest, we will personally deliver the sword to your residence this afternoon. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I'll just wait here." Yu Qinyu replied a little indifferently, but her beautiful eyes were searching for something in the surrounding crowd. When she saw Chu Hen, who was about to disappear around the corner, she changed her words and said, "You should help me send him back to the general's mansion. I'll be leaving first." Miss Qinyu, before the member of the giant elephant martial house could say anything, Yu Qinyu turned around and left in a hurry. "Hey, who's that? Please wait a moment." Just as Chu Hen stepped out of the martial house's entrance, a sweet-sounding voice came from behind him. Chu Hen turned around and asked in confusion, "Are you calling me?" Yu Qinyu lightly ran in front of Chu Hen like a butterfly and said with some embarrassment, "Thank you for just now." To be honest, Chu Hen was the one who saved the raging scale bear from the front. "It's nothing, just lifting a finger. If you don't have anything else, I'll be leaving first." "Wait a moment." Yu Qinyu called out to him again. Her almond-shaped eyes looked up, and her beautiful eyes wandered. "Also, I apologize for what I said." "Apologize?" Chu Hen was slightly surprised, but his eyebrows relaxed. She was the daughter of a famous general of the imperial capital, and yet she was apologizing to a nobody. Immediately, Chu Hen's view of Yu Qinyu changed. "It's nothing, I didn't take it to heart." Chu Hen's tone was much more relaxed. Yu Qinyu faintly smiled and stretched out her smooth white hand. "My name is Yu Qinyu. Nice to meet you. Chu-hen. Chu-hen calmly replied and lightly touched the other's hand. Miss Chin-yu, I still have things to do, so I can't talk anymore. Goodbye. Okay, see you at the giant elephant martial house. Yu Chin-yu had already determined that she and Chu-hen would be accepted by the giant elephant martial house. Of course, in the eyes of others, this was a matter that was nailed to the door. Chu-hen politely nodded, then turned and left. After leaving the giant elephant martial house, Chu-hen returned to the inn alone. The quiet and elegant guest room seemed to be filled with a tranquil atmosphere. Looking back at today's assessment, although Chu-hen's performance at the last moment made people's eyes light up, in reality, the greatest credit was still given to Yu Chin-yu and her group. If Yu Chin-yu and her group had not attacked, the scale bear would not have consumed most of its energy. Chu-hen would not have waited for the right opportunity to give it a fatal blow. If he had to deal with that big fellow alone, Chu-hen would only be able to escape. The capital really is a gathering of heroes. Ordinary geniuses are not worth much here. Chu-hen clenched his fists, a determined light flashing in his eyes. If he wanted to stand out in the capital, where geniuses were everywhere, he needed to become stronger and pay more. Immediately, Chu-hen entered a state of cultivation. When the giant elephant martial house's acceptance list was announced tomorrow, Long Qingyang would be very happy to see him in the same martial house when he returned from the Celestial Pond Mountains. The night flew by. When the morning light poured into the room through the window, Chu-hen awoke from his state of cultivation. Phew! Letting out a deep breath, Chu-hen suddenly felt that his body was full of energy and his mind was refreshed. The power of his Zhen Yuan was actively circulating in his meridians. In the past few days, Chu-hen had constantly used the power of the sacred demonic eye body and the chaotic body to fuse and circulate his true Yuan. The effects were obvious. It won't be long before I can open my 9th martial meridian. A glimmer of anticipation flashed in Chu-hen's eyes. He got off his bed, washed up, and tidied himself up before leaving for the giant elephant martial house. At the entrance of the giant elephant martial house, it was crowded and noisy. Compared to the previous day, there were even more people here today. Noisy chatter filled the air, mixed with the joyful voices of those who had been accepted and the helpless sighs of those who had failed. Everyone was gathered in front of a notice board at the entrance of the martial house. There were 3 pieces of red paper on the notice board, and the names of those who had been accepted were written on them. Haha, I've been accepted by the giant elephant martial house. Happy. You can bring honor to your ancestors now. Sigh, I failed again. Let's go to another martial house. I've been to all 5 martial houses, and all of them failed. I can only go to an ordinary martial house, or maybe I'll have to wait until next year. There was joy and sorrow, laughter and sorrow. Sometimes, life is often so cruel. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. Quick, look, that person is here. Who? The one who killed the scale bear yesterday. When Chu-hen appeared, there was a slight commotion in the crowd. Many people's attention was focused on him. Under the different gazes of the crowd, Chu-hen walked in front of the notice board and started reading. What's his name again? Chu-hen. I think it's him. He must have been accepted. His performance yesterday was so good. As the crowd talked, they couldn't help but start searching for the name Chu-hen on the notice board. Chu-hen was the first to see Yu Qinyu's name on the first list, but he didn't see his name. He then looked at the second list, but he still didn't see it. When Chu-hen seriously finished reading the 3rd red list name list, his entire person was stunned. His name was also not on the 3rd admission name list. Chapter 20. He was rejected? Looking at the 3 acceptance lists on the notice board, Chu-hen stood rooted to the ground. He clenched his fists, and a profound look appeared on his face. The other young male and female students who were watching from the sidelines were equally shocked, and their faces were filled with deep surprise. Strange. Why isn't his name on the list? That doesn't make sense. He killed the raging scale bear in 2 moves yesterday. I'm not too sure about that. Everyone was discussing this. The final situation of the first group's assessment yesterday was still very clear. Logically speaking, with Chu-hen's performance, there shouldn't be any problems with his admission. But the reality was beyond everyone's expectations. Apart from the people who felt puzzled and sorry for Chu Hen, there were also many people who had smiles of schadenfreude on their faces. Actually, it's normal to be rejected. Under the circumstances yesterday, the raging scale bear was already exhausted. It would have been an easy task to kill it. Moreover, he didn't tell his plan to the other students in the first group. This is clearly him stepping on his companions to climb up. This kind of behavior is not worth advocating. You speak as if it's true. Come on, it's just an assessment. What's there to use? That's right. He even saved Miss Chunyu in the end. Oomph. Then tell me why he was rejected by the Mammoth Martial House? Apart from this reason, do you want any other reason? The surrounding whispers were like a torrent, constantly entering Chu Hen's ears. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He let out a deep breath and did not linger any longer. He immediately turned around and left. Walking alone on the bustling street, Chu Hen's mood was both solemn and puzzled. Previously, he was rejected in Tifeng Province. Now, he was rejected by the Mammoth Martial House. Was there a connection between these two matters? If there was a connection between these two matters, then things would be much simpler. Someone was targeting him? Confusion surged in Chu Hen's eyes. He had only been in the Imperial City for less than 3 days and had not offended anyone. Could it be the Liu family's doing? However, this was the Imperial City of the Imperial Capital. The Liu family couldn't even do whatever they wanted in Flaming Rain City, let alone here. Forget it. Chu Hen shook his head. Since he couldn't figure out, he might as well not think about it. No matter what, he had already been rejected by the Mammoth Martial House. Next, he should consider other ways out. Very quickly, Chu Hen adjusted his inner emotions, and a resolute luster flashed in his bright eyes. Then, without hesitation, he headed in a certain direction. Mammoth Martial House. A spacious pavilion exuded a majestic aura. A vermilion stone pillar stood in a wide corridor. At the end of the corridor was a beautifully decorated room. However, faint sounds of argument could be heard. Elder Wei, what do you mean by this? Mentor Lu Su, please watch your tone. A middle-aged man in his 40s sat on a wide chair, looking at a man in his 30s with dissatisfaction. The latter was none other than the main mentor of yesterday's Martial House assessment, Lu Su. At this moment, Lu Su's brows were tightly furrowed, and he seemed to be a little agitated. He pointed to a name list in his hand and said, Elder Wei, why did you remove the student named Chu Hen? Ha! The middle-aged man called Elder Wei chuckled. I thought it was some big deal. Isn't it just a student? But he has already passed the assessment. You should at least give me a reason to reject him. Mentor Lu, do I need to ask you for instructions when I make a decision? Elder Wei coldly stared at him, and his tone was indifferent. Lu Su couldn't help but feel angry. He had a lot of respect for this student, Chu Hen. Now that the other party had removed Chu Hen without giving him a clear reason, he was somewhat dissatisfied. Elder Wei, Lu Su frowned and said in a deep voice, I am the person in charge of the assessment. So what? If you're not satisfied with my way of doing things, you can complain to the dean. However, this elder has to remind you, don't put yourself in a difficult position for such a trivial matter. Ew. Lu Su's expression changed slightly. Elder Wei's words were full of threat. It was impossible to complain to the dean. It was just removing a new student. Let alone the dean, even an ordinary mentor wouldn't care. It was indeed a trivial matter. The reason why Lu Su felt indignant was that he felt Chu Hen was a talent that could be molded, and it would be a pity to remove him. However, his status was not higher than that of Elder Wei, so he could only do nothing. You can go now. I still have something to deal with. Elder Wei said disdainfully. Lu Su suppressed his anger and did not let it out. He clenched his fists and turned to leave angrily. A cold light flashed in Elder Wei's eyes, and a contemptuous sneer appeared on his face. At noon, Chu Hen arrived at the entrance of a mansion. There was a plaque hanging directly above the majestic gate of the mansion. There were 4 words carved on the plaque. Bright Moon Martial House. The Bright Moon Martial House was one of the 5 top colleges in the capital. The reason why Chu Hen chose this school was because Long Xuanchuang was here. She was Long Zhan's youngest daughter and Chu Hen's second sister. Although they were not related by blood, Long Xuan did not treat Chu Hen as kindly as Long Qingyang. They were still family who had grown up together. It would not be a bad thing if he could be in the same college as Long Xuan. At this moment, there was almost no one at the entrance of the Bright Moon Marshall House. There were only a few guards and a registrar on the left side of the steps. The man lazily sat on a chair behind a long table. He squinted his eyes and had a bored expression on his face. "I want to sign up for the assessment." Chu Hen walked in front of the person and said humbly, The registrar yawned and looked at Chu Hen from the corner of his eyes. "Why are you so late? The assessment started a long time ago." "Then I'll sign up for tomorrow's assessment," Chu Hen said. The man did not answer him. Instead, he turned and shouted in the direction of the Bright Moon Marshall House's gate. Housie? Chu Hen was stunned. Was that a person's name? Housie. Seeing that there was no movement in front of him, the man shouted a few more times. I'm coming. Are you rushing me?" Accompanied by a dissatisfied grumble, a small youth with a small head and small eyes ran out of the gate of the Bright Moon Marshall House. Seeing this person, Chu Hen immediately understood that the name Housie was really a symbol. Especially his small eyes, they really looked like those of a mouse. "Housie, did you fall into a manure pit, or did your ears get blocked by earwax? Why did you only agree after shouting for so long?" The registrar scolded him. "You're the one who fell into a manure pit. Can't you shout louder? You know that my ears are small. You're doing this on purpose." Housie retorted without any trace of politeness. Listening to the conversation between the two, Chu Hen's forehead was covered with black lines. Were these two really from the Bright Moon Marshall House? Could he have come to the wrong place? "You, tell me your name and age." The registrar turned to look at Chu Hen. Chu Hen, 16 years old. After a simple registration, the man turned and said, "Housie, bring him to the assessment site and see if there are any other arrangements. If not, we'll have to wait for the next notice." "Thank you." Chu Hen nodded gratefully. The man waved his hand and did not say anything else. The small-eyed man, Housie, was quite enthusiastic. He come with me. "Speaking of which, you're really late. The assessment started this morning. I don't even know if you can participate. I had an accident today. I've caused you trouble." Chu Hen replied. It's fine. These days, I've seen a lot of people like you. You have to do your best. If you enter our Bright Moon Marshall House, you'll have a very bright future. You should have the strength of a level 7 channel opening realm, right?" Chu Hen was slightly startled. "You don't have it? What about level 6? You should have level 6, right?" Housie continued. "If you don't even have level 6, I think it'll be a little difficult. But it doesn't matter, there will still be opportunities in the future. Just like me, I took 2 years to enter the Bright Moon Marshall House. Don't give up." Housie was obviously a pure chatterbox. His age was obviously not much older than Chu Hen, but he put on the appearance of a senior. But the other person's appearance was not like that at all. It looked a little funny. Of course, Chu Hen did not reject this kind of long-winded chatter. After all, the other person's words carried a trace of care. Under Housie's guidance, Chu Hen arrived at a wide Dao platform square. The square was filled with people. Basically, they were all 15 or 16 years old boys and girls. There were about 500 or 600 people in total. At this moment, almost everyone's eyes were focused on the high platform in the middle of the square. On the platform, the sound of collisions of true essence and the shouts of the crowd could be heard. Chu Hen looked over and saw that there was a battle going on the high platform. 20 or 30 young boys and girls were besieging a person. The person who was being besieged was tall and sturdy like a bear. He looked to be about 30 years old and held a broadsword in his hand. Facing the surrounding attacks of many students, he was calm and unruffled. "This is the content of the assessment?" Chu Hen asked in surprise. Chapter 21. The content of our Bright Moon Marshall House's assessment is very simple. There is only one task, and that is to form a group of 30 people and attack Instructor Lu Meng with all their might. As long as you can endure Instructor Lu Meng's attacks for a quarter of an incense stick's time, you will pass. Listening to Housie's explanation, Chu Hen nodded his head. The content of this assessment was somewhat similar to the Mammoth Marshall Houses. Looking at Instructor Lu Meng, who was holding a broadsword in his hand, who was surrounded by 30 young students, instructor Lu Meng remained calm and composed, not showing any signs of panic. This instructor, Lu Meng's cultivation, seems to be higher than the first level of the element opening stage. Chu Hen blurted out. Indeed, he is not at the element opening stage. Instructor Lu Meng has the strength of a core transformation stage. However, he is currently suppressing his cultivation to the first level of the element opening stage. How's he explained? I see. Compared to the Mammoth Martial House's assessment, the Bright Moon Martial House's assessment was much stricter. Even though they were divided into groups to fight, it was inevitable that the demonic beast would accidentally injure the students. On the other hand, the core transformation stage experts suppressed their strength to the first level of the element opening stage so that they could effectively control their strength and ensure the safety of the students. Similarly, the difficulty of the Bright Moon Martial House's assessment was also relatively higher. After all, the intelligence of humans far surpassed that of great demonic beasts. Even if their strength was suppressed, their combat experience was still enough to give many young and inexperienced students a headache. Boom! Bang! The sound of various types of true yuan colliding caused the airflow on the stage to become abnormally chaotic. Bang! Lu Meng heavily stabbed the broadsword in his hand into the cracks of the stone tiles on the stage and loudly shouted with a playful smile on his face. Little brats, if this is all you have, then there's nothing left to play with. Everyone's expressions changed. Lu Meng had not taken the initiative to attack, but his defense was impregnable. No matter which angle they attacked from, they could not get close to him. Xiao! Suddenly, a hurried sound reverberated on the stage. A swift and fierce young figure quickly rushed towards Lu Meng. The other party waved the long sword in his hand, and several condensed sword auras tore through the air and attacked his opponent. Interesting, Lu Meng was a little surprised by the person who suddenly attacked him. He raised his left hand and unleashed a powerful palm energy. Bang! The few sword chis that were attacking Lu Meng were immediately shattered and turned into a mass of chaotic chi waves. In the next instant, the sword-wielding young man had already flashed in front of Lu Meng. Once again, he used his fastest speed to slash out with his sword. A powerful sword shadow directly struck the broadsword beside Lu Meng's feet. Not good. Lu Meng couldn't help but be shocked. The opponent's target wasn't him, but his weapon. Ding! With a crisp sound, the broadsword in front of Lu Meng was sent flying. Senior brother, well done. The rest of the people on the stage were pleasantly surprised. Immediately, without waiting for Lu Meng to retrieve his weapon, the crowd immediately attacked him from all directions. This sudden change caused even Lu Meng to be surprised. He looked at the sword-wielding young man in front of him and said with slight admiration, "So you've been pretending to be weak from the start. I didn't think that I would actually be tricked by you. Thank you for your praise, Instructor Lu Meng." A proud smile appeared on the young man's face. In an instant, an aura that was several times stronger than before exploded from his body. A sharp sword aura immediately enveloped Lu Meng. Boom! 9th ranked channel opening stage? I didn't think that senior brother, He Chao, had actually opened 9 martial veins. Damn, we've all been tricked by him. The crowd below the stage was in an uproar. From the start, He Chao had only displayed a cultivation of the 8th ranked channel opening stage. Among the crowd, he was already an extraordinary genius. Unexpectedly, his opponent had been concealing his true strength. Even Lu Meng had been careless, resulting in his weapon being snatched away. Damn it, this He Chao really knows how to endure. The crowd was both surprised and amazed. A person like this, with both strength and intelligence, could be called a true genius. Lu Meng, who had lost his weapon, obviously had his attack power reduced. In addition to He Chao's continuous attacks that were like flowing water, Lu Meng was no longer as calm and composed as he was before. This person is very smart. Chu Hen looked at the situation on the stage and nodded in agreement. At the side, Rat grinned and said, He Chao, a member of the Imperial City clan. When he was still in the youth martial house, he already had some fame. He is indeed a rare genius. Moreover, He Chao's bloodline limit is the spiritual sword battle body. This year, many high-ranked martial houses are fighting to have him. But because of some reason, he still came to our Bright Moon Martial House. Hee. Ninth ranked channel opening stage. The bloodline limit of the spiritual sword battle body. Chu Hen could not help but secretly nod. He was indeed an extraordinary genius. Of course, before coming to the Imperial City, he had already realized that compared to the Imperial City, Flaming Rain City was an extremely small place. Bang! Under the cautious gazes of the audience, the battle on the stage became more and more intense. No matter what, Lu Meng's real cultivation level was at the core transformation stage, so He Chao's attack did not cause him panic. After a short period of defense, Lu Meng gradually stabilized his position. Everyone hold on. We will win in half a cup of tea's time. A student shouted. Hee. Lu Meng's face revealed a sinister smile. Little bastards, do you really think I'm so easy to deal with? Half a cup of tea's time is enough for me to beat all of you. After saying that, a vigorous aura poured out from Lu Meng's body. Wisps of golden true essence surged out of his body like a thin veil. Everyone immediately felt a formless pressure from his aura. The surrounding people's faces changed. One of the young men said, Instructor Lu Meng, don't be shameless. You can only fight us with the strength of the first rank of the element opening stage. Of course I know that. This is the strength of the first rank of the element opening stage. Wong. Before he finished his sentence, Lu Meng's body moved. He raised his fist and punched at the nearest student. The latter could not withstand the attack and was directly sent flying. Without giving the audience any time to think, Lu Meng continuously launched counterattacks. Immediately, another 2 students were sent flying off the stage. Lu Meng was starting to get serious. His continuous attacks were as fierce as his name. One after another, the young students were knocked to the ground without being able to resist. At this time, everyone's gaze fell on He Chao. However, when Lu Meng exploded, He Chao retreated a few meters away. No one knew what he was going to do. Senior brother He Chao, save us. We can't hold on any longer. Wong. Suddenly, a restless energy was released from He Chao's body. With him as the center, the surrounding air flow became chaotic. What followed was the sharp sword in He Chao's hand. It started to be surrounded by a layer of dazzling golden light. The dazzling light was like the essence of the holy radiance. The piercingly cold aura continued to spread. Zong! With a clear sound of metal, He Chao's eyes flashed with a cold light. His body moved, and he flew out like an arrow leaving the bow. Graceful sword. The sharp sword aura whistled as He Chao's aura increased greatly. The treasured sword in his hand swallowed and emitted a dazzling light. The audience's expressions turned serious. The power of He Chao's sword did not lose to the first rank of the element opening stage. Lu Meng's pupils shrank slightly. Between his eyebrows, there was a hint of surprise that he did not reveal. With a cold light flashing, He Chao flashed past Lu Meng like a ghost. Under the shocked gazes of the audience, the left side of Lu Meng's shirt was sliced open. The sharp aura spread wantonly. Boom! In an instant, the entire square was filled with boiling cheers. The thunderous applause swept out in all directions with earth-shattering force. Haha, beautifully done. Senior brother He Chao is mighty. Senior brother He Chao is amazing. No wonder you are a monstrous genius who possesses the spiritual sword battle body. Congratulations, senior brother He Chao. Amidst the cheers of the audience, He Chao and his group had relaxed smiles on their faces. Lu Meng also did not continue to attack. Thank you, Instructor Lu Meng, for going easy on me. He Chao cupped his fists with a proud smile on his face. Lu Meng waved his hand. I didn't go easy on you. This is your own ability. His voice slightly paused as a hint of admiration appeared in his eyes. The spiritual sword battle body is really amazing. Congratulations, He Chao smiled and nodded. Between his eyebrows, there was a hint of pride. Below the square, Chu Hen looked at this scene with a puzzled expression. He said to Housie, who was beside him, "Senior brother Housie, isn't the quarter of an incense's time not up yet? Has this group's assessment already ended?" Hee, I forgot to tell you just now. Housie rubbed his nose and grinned. There is another rule in the assessment. As long as anyone can injure Instructor Lu Meng, the entire group of 30 people will pass. He Chao's sword cut Lu Meng's clothes. This can be considered an effective attack. There is such a rule. Chu Hen was very surprised. That's right. Although Instructor Lu Meng suppressed his strength to the first level of the elemental opening realm, the truth is that he is at the core transformation realm. With the standard of the new students, it is impossible for them to injure him. In order to make the assessment more visible, there is this special rule. Speaking of which, He Chao is the first new student to injure Lu Meng. It could be seen that Housie was quite approving of He Chao. Chu Hen also nodded. Indeed, someone who had the ability to cut Lu Meng's clothes had no qualifications to not be accepted into the Bright Moon Martial House. As for the other people in that group, they also passed. This was equivalent to an extra benefit. Senior brother He Chao is too amazing. Why wasn't I in the same group as him? There's only the last group left. Amidst the exclamations, the students in He Chao's group retreated from the stage happily. A few of the Bright Moon Martial House's instructors in charge of the assessment went up the stage one after another. Instructor Lu Meng, how are you? Do you need someone to replace you for the next assessment? A teacher who was about the same age as Lu Meng teased. Lu Meng glared at him and shouted in dissatisfaction, "Get lost. I'm very good." Chapter 22. Next up is the last group's assessment. The Bright Moon Martial House instructor in charge of the assessment said. Everyone's attention immediately shifted from He Chao. There was only one group left. Chu Hen frowned. It seemed that he would not be able to participate in the assessment today. Housie helplessly shook his head. He then patted Chu Hen's shoulder and said with a smile, "It's all right. Let's wait a few more days. In any case, there are many people who want to sign up for the Bright Moon Martial House." Chu Hen faintly smiled and nodded. Together with the instructor in charge of the assessment, one by one, the young students ascended the high platform. Most of the people had a nervous expression on their faces. To last a quarter of an incense stick of time under Lu Meng's hands was definitely not an easy task. In addition to testing everyone's ability to cooperate, there must at least be a genius like He Chao who could lead the team. Only then would there be a high chance of passing. Not long after, there were nearly 30 people gathered on the platform. The instructor in charge of the assessment suddenly let out a cry of surprise. What was going on? What had happened? Everyone had a confused expression on their faces. The instructor furrowed his eyebrows and said, "I'm sorry, I miscalculated. There are only 29 of you. Not enough to form a group? F*CK. No way." What the F*CK? We can't beat them in the first place, and now we're one person short. All sorts of complaints rose and fell. The instructor in charge of the assessment was also a little embarrassed. After all, the total number of people participating in the assessment was not something he could control. Often, there would be a few more people or a few fewer people. Usually, this kind of situation would be queued up for the next assessment. But today, there was only one person short. If they had to wait for the next assessment, it would inevitably cause some people to be annoyed. Not bad, not bad. There's one more here. At this moment, Housie dashed up the high platform and said to the instructor, "Instructor Li Wei, a student just signed up." Oh, everyone's eyes lit up. Housie hurriedly waved at Chu Hen. "Junior brother Chu Hen, come here quickly." You're really lucky. Their gazes fell on Chu Hen in unison. When they saw this unfamiliar handsome face, the 29 people on the high platform shook their heads in unison. Who is this? Who knows? I don't know him. He probably came from some small place again. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, Chu Hen walked up the platform with steady steps. Instructor Li Wei glanced at the other party, then took a brush dipped in ink from the hands of another member of the Bright Moon Martial House beside him. Name, age, where do you live? Chu Hen, 16 years old, from Raining Flame City, Housie replied. The moment they heard the three words Blazing Rain City, The people on the platform instantly sighed. One by one, they looked at Chu Hen with disdain and disdain. Among the few places around the capital, Blazing Rain City could be said to be the smallest city. It was not well known, and the number of geniuses that came from Blazing Rain City was pitifully low. In addition, Chu Hen's sharpness was restrained, so he did not seem to attract much attention. Therefore, in the eyes of the crowd, adding him alone did not seem to be of much use. Instructor Li Wei felt that Chu Hen had come at the right time. He wrote down Chu Hen's basic information on the registration form, then said to the last group of students, "All right, the 30 of you have 15 minutes to discuss tactics. No need." Just as Li Wei finished speaking, a young figure walked out. This person was quite handsome, and his entire body exuded a sharp sword aura. This sword aura was somewhat similar to the genius He Chao from the previous group. No need to waste time. The young man glanced at Chu Hen with disdain and said in an indifferent tone, "We have already discussed tactics below the platform. But now you have one more person," Li Wei said. "Huh?" The young man laughed coldly, and the disdain between his eyebrows deepened. "He's just here to make up the numbers. Why are you so serious?" "He's just here to make up the numbers." Disdain, naked disdain. However, with regard to the young man's attitude, no one stood up for Chu Hen. Instead, they looked at Chu Hen with ridicule and amusement. He Xian. At this moment, He Chao, who had shown in the previous group, suddenly stood up and said to the young man with a reprimanding tone, "Be more polite in front of the mentors." He Chao paused, then said to Li Wei, "Mentor Li Wei, my little brother has been spoiled by his family since he was young. He doesn't know what's important when he speaks. I hope the mentor can forgive him." He Xian, little brother? Some of the people who didn't know what was going on suddenly realized that this arrogant young man was actually He Chao's little brother. No wonder his body exuded a sharp sword aura. Since he was He Chao's little brother, his strength must be extraordinary. Many students in the last group couldn't help but feel the hope of winning Ignite. No problem. Mentor Li Wei wasn't a petty person. He wasn't angry because of He Xian's rudeness. Then, Li Wei looked at Chu Hen and said, "Do you need to discuss with everyone?" He Xian wasn't rude to Li Wei. He only looked down on Chu Hen. He Chao only apologized to Li Wei, but he ignored Chu Hen. Everything around him seemed to be saying that Chu Hen had come to the wrong place and at the wrong time. "Junior Chu Hen, why don't you wait for the next assessment?" Housie was a little dissatisfied with the crowd's exclusion, so he spoke up for Chu Hen. However, he didn't have much confidence. Chu Hen smiled. There was not the slightest fluctuation of emotions on his face. "No need. Let's do as that senior said. Let's start now." In the next moment, the entire audience burst into an uproar. He Xian had a pleased and indifferent smile on his face, causing Housie to feel extremely annoyed. Of course, Chu Hen wasn't giving in, nor was he afraid of the other party. He just didn't like to cause trouble. Since that's the case, the last group's assessment will begin now, Li Wei announced loudly. Shortly after, the teachers in charge of the assessment and the unrelated people left the high platform. "Junior Chu Hen, do your best." Housie patted Chu Hen's shoulder and said encouragingly. Chu Hen smiled. "I will do my best." After saying this, Housie also walked off the stage. Not long after, there were only 30 young students, and the examiner Lu Ming left on the high platform in the middle of the square. "Haha, little brats, the previous group's battle made me very unhappy. Therefore, in this round, I will vent my anger on all of you." Lu Ming pointed the broadsword in his hand at the 30 people in front of him. Everyone's expression changed slightly, and they cursed in their hearts. What did the last group's assessment have to do with this group? He Xian's eyes narrowed, and he said in a low voice, "Everyone, don't panic. As long as you help me break through his defense, everyone will be able to pass smoothly." "Understood, Senior He Xian. If you have any instructions, just tell us." "That's right. We will definitely do our best." He Xian smiled lightly, and then he got into an attacking stance. "Everyone get ready. It's time to move." The atmosphere on the square became obviously tenser. Lu Ming's face was full of a playful smile, as if he was an adult looking at a group of children. "Little brats, show me all your skills. Go!" Boom! As soon as Xian's voice fell, the surrounding young students all attacked together. One by one, they took out their weapons, and they were like a pack of wolves charging towards their prey. However, they all understood that this prey was much stronger than any of them. It was absolutely impossible to win in a one-on-one fight, so they could only rely on the advantage of numbers to complete the capture. Haha, interesting. Lu Meng laughed, revealing a mouthful of coarse teeth. Then, he waved the broadsword in his hand, and the tip of the sword pointed downwards, firmly hitting the ground. Buzz! The moment the tip of the sword landed on the stage, a circle of thick white air immediately swept out in all directions with Lu Meng as the center. The ferocious power of the wind rushed out like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Everyone was shaken to the point of retreating. Xiao! In the next moment, Xian turned into a black shadow and flew out. As he moved, a sharp 3-foot-long sword appeared in his hand. The sword was like a shadow, shining like a ray of light. The speed of Xian's sword was so fast that it left everyone dumbfounded. The sword that was like the wind instantly arrived in front of Lu Meng, and the tip of the sword was pointed at his chest. "Well done, senior brother Xian," a young man at the side exclaimed excitedly. Lu Meng laughed mockingly and unhurriedly held the broadsword in front of him. "Don't be too happy yet." Bang! Xian's sword hit the center of his opponent's broadsword, and the sword energy collided with the true origin energy. Lu Meng's feet did not move even half a step. "Your speed is okay, but your strength is not enough," Lu Meng said with a faint smile. Xian frowned and quickly changed his attack. His long sword stabbed diagonally at his opponent's left rib. Lu Meng dodged sideways and easily dodged the attack. He waved his broadsword horizontally and hit Xian's chest. However, Xian was not an ordinary person, and with a backward movement, he dodged his opponent's attack. The instant the two of them exchanged blows, the eyes of the spectators lit up. Although Xian was only at the 8th level of the channel opening realm, his control of sword techniques was not inferior to his brother, Chao. Moreover, Xian's sword wind mainly focused on agility and speed. In a situation like this where there were so many people, it still had some advantages. Senior brother Xian is really not bad. This group has a high chance of completing another final kill. One is Chao, and the other is Xian. Today's limelight has all been taken by the two geniuses of the He clan. Chapter 23. After a day, Chu Hen once again stood on the high platform for the Bright Moon Martial House's entrance examination. Compared to the Mammoth Martial House's examination method, the Bright Moon Martial House's was more or less the same. On the high platform in the middle of the square, the colliding sounds of true essence constantly reverberated on the platform. Senior brother Xian is really amazing. This group has a chance of completing the final kill. Based on the current situation, there is indeed a great chance. The crowd around the square all praised Xian's performance. Even Li Wei and the other teachers in charge of the examination secretly nodded in approval. Although the other party's personality was a bit arrogant, it could be said that he had the qualifications to be arrogant. Charge! You guys attack from the left side, those over there attack from the right side. Understood. As Xian was the main attacking point, he was also constantly giving out his attacks. Everyone's attacks were like a tide, one after another, advancing wave after wave to assist Xian. Ding ding, Xian's sword was like the wind, fast and nimble, constantly attacking Lu Meng. The dazzling sword light dazzled everyone's eyes, and the true essence collided with each other in waves. At the beginning, Chu Hen also participated in the attack on Lu Meng. However, the others beside him didn't seem to regard Chu Hen as a companion. In a situation where he couldn't be trusted, Chu Hen couldn't occupy an effective position to attack, so he basically wandered around in the rear area. Towards the end, Chu Hen simply stopped attacking and happily played the role of a spectator. Haozi, who was the only one paying attention to Chu Hen, helplessly shook his head and sighed. Junior brother Chu Hen, don't just stand there. If you just stand there and watch, you won't be able to pass the examination. Hey, forget it. I don't think that person has any ability. It's best if he just obediently stays there. Not far away, a young man said sarcastically. That's right. He won't be a hindrance. In any case, he's just here to make up the numbers. He'll just go through the motions. Almost no one in the room took Chu Hen seriously. Hsien was the only key to this assessment. The others could at least provide some assistance. As for Chu Hen, his biggest role was to make up the number of 30. Boom. Bang. The confrontation on the stage was getting more and more intense and chaotic. Even though everyone was doing their best to cooperate with Hsien to complete one attack after another, Lu Meng had yet to reveal any flaws. On the other hand, because of the continuous attacks, everyone's stamina was somewhat unable to keep up. Hee little brats, is it fun? Lu Meng raised his hand and pushed Hsien back with a palm strike. A dense aura surged out like an undercurrent. If you're done playing, it's my turn now. As soon as he said that, everyone's expression changed. Immediately after, a few students who were in charge of restraining Lu Meng from the left side attacked. Long spears, sharp swords, all sorts of sharp weapons were aimed at Lu Meng. Hey! Lu Meng raised his eyebrows and swept the broadsword in his hand horizontally. Pung pung. A series of heavy sounds overlapped, and the weapons in the hands of several young students flew out of their hands. At the same time, a tyrannical white wave of chi rushed out, and the few of them immediately fell to the ground. Damn it! Everyone cursed in their hearts. The atmosphere on the stage became more and more tense. Everyone, hold on. We still have a big chance. Hsien shouted in a deep voice. On the other side, a few people could not help but grit their teeth and release all the true yuan in their bodies to attack Lu Meng together. Too weak, too weak. Lu Meng sneered as he stretched out his left hand. Clearly visible, true yuan quickly condensed into a solid chi vortex in the center of his palm. Lu Meng moved his mind and opened his 5 fingers. Boom! The chi vortex immediately exploded in the air. A tyrannical white shockwave flowed out like an undercurrent. The joint attack of a few young students was instantly shattered by the shockwave. The true yuan that they released was instantly crushed like tofu, and they were forcefully thrown off the stage. Lu Meng's display of power was really unstoppable. Seeing this scene, everyone's faces turned as white as paper. They could not help but wonder if Lu Meng had actually suppressed his strength to the first level of the element opening realm. That was 2F king strong. He was so strong that no one dared to look at him directly. Senior Hsien, quickly think of a way. The one who spoke was a girl with a delicate appearance. However, just as she finished speaking, Lu Meng rushed in front of Hsien. Hey, you brat. You're the most dishonest one. I'll kill you first before we talk. Lu Meng raised his broadsword high and slashed down. Hsien's face changed slightly, and he hurriedly retreated. Boom! In the next second, the broadsword in Lu Meng's hand landed firmly on the ground where Hsien was just standing. Rocks of all sizes were sent flying, and cracks like a spider's web extended in all directions. Everyone's face changed again and again. They were shocked again and again. It seemed that Lu Meng was indeed serious. Lu Meng's attack missed, and he once again chased after Hsien. Hsien did not even have the time to gather his true yuan, and he continuously dodged. Many of the spectators had solemn expressions on their faces. In the blink of an eye, the advantage that they had painstakingly built up previously had collapsed. Lu Meng's tyrannical strength was one of the reasons, but it was also obvious that Hsien's true strength was still lacking compared to He Chao's. Lu Meng, this brat, Li Wei and the other teachers in charge of the assessment shook their heads. They naturally knew that Lu Meng was trying to regain the face that he had lost in the previous assessment. Of course, with Hsien's strength, there would definitely be no problem for him to enter the Bright Moon Martial House. Even if Hsien was thrown off the stage in the end, it would not affect his assessment score. Hsien was naturally aware of this, but the proud and arrogant him would never allow himself to be thrown off the stage in front of so many people, even if his opponent was Lu Meng. Thus, the stage gradually turned into a scene of a cat chasing a mouse. Lu Meng had the intention of, if I don't kill you, I won't be surnamed Lu. While He Xian had the mentality of, if I'm thrown off the stage by you, I won't be surnamed He. Under Lu Meng's relentless attacks, He Xian only had the ability to defend. The surrounding people wanted to help, but they could not keep up with Lu Meng's pace and speed. Bang! A violent burst of energy erupted. He Xian took Lu Meng's attack head-on, and in the face of the strong impact, He Xian was directly forced to retreat. Haha, go down there and lie down. Lu Meng's face revealed a strange smile. His left palm turned into a fist, and a surge of true yuan quickly wrapped around his arm. In the next moment, Lu Meng's left fist looked as if it was soaked in a golden holy light, showing its biting cold power. Damn it, He Xian turned pale with fright. It would be terrible if he was hit by Lu Meng's fist. Without giving He Xian any time to react, Lu Meng's fist surged forward with the momentum of breaking the wind. The fierce pressure emitted an unshakable power. The audience below the stage frowned one after another. Among the new students present, He Chao was probably the only one who could block Lu Meng's fist. Seeing that the tyrannical fist was about to hit him, He Xian's heart hardened. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he suddenly dashed toward the young figure not far away from his left. And this young figure was none other than Chu Han. What was He Xian trying to do? Without waiting for the audience to react, He Xian actually dashed to Chu Han's side with the fastest speed possible. He instantly grabbed Chu Han's shoulder and then fiercely pushed him towards Lu Meng. He wants to use that guy as a shield. Not good. That kid will be killed by instructor Lu Meng in one punch. There was a burst of astonished cries from the audience. One should know that Lu Meng's attack this time was specifically aimed at He Xian, who had opened up 8 main martial meridians. If Chu Han did not have He Xian's strength, even if he did not die, he would be half dead. No one expected He Xian to do something like this. One had to admit that this move was really despicable. Not good. Everything happened too quickly. Even Lu Meng did not have time to withdraw his true yuan. In the audience's mind, the scene of Chu Han's bones being broken by Lu Meng's fist already appeared. The expressions of Li Wei and the other examiners changed. In the eyes of the audience, Chu Han was like an innocent victim who was mercilessly pushed into the abyss by He Xian. Buzz, buzz! A piercingly cold wind rushed towards him. A cold light flashed in Chu Han's eyes, but his handsome face did not show any signs of panic. At the same time, a strange force rose from within his body. Boom! A heavy, thunderous explosion suddenly exploded on the stage. A circle of thick qi spread out. In an instant, the pupils of the audience could not help but tremble. The scene that the audience imagined did not appear. Chu Han stood on the stage, unharmed. His fist met Lu Meng's fist head-on. Chu Han's entire right arm was surrounded by a strange black, flame-like radiance. The black flame and the golden light collided, and it did not seem to be at a disadvantage. This is Chapter 24. Buzz. A wave of chaotic air current wantonly spread out on the stage. At this moment, the scene in front of them had directly shocked the entire audience. Chu Han actually blocked Lu Meng's punch. The black light that rose from Chu Han's arm collided with the golden light that lingered on Lu Meng's fist. The ground beneath their feet began to crack like a spider's web. F***, what's going on? That guy actually blocked teacher Lu Meng's attack. The sudden change caused everyone present to be so startled that they were speechless. He Chao, Haozi, Li Wei, and the rest were in disbelief. He Xian, who had tricked Chu Han, was even more shocked. In an instant, Chu Han's figure became mysterious in the eyes of the crowd. This young man from Flaming Rain City had hidden his strength well. Feeling the hidden force from Chu Han's fist, Lu Meng's eyebrows relaxed, and a smile of appreciation appeared on his face. Not bad. I didn't expect such an amazing genius to be hidden in the crowd. Buzz! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Han suddenly retracted his fist force, turned around, and directly flashed towards He Xian, who was not far away. Everyone was shocked. Chu Han actually wanted to find trouble with his opponent now. Humph. He Xian frowned and waved the sharp sword in his hand to stab Chu Han. Get lost. In He Xian's opinion, Lu Meng's punch just now did not kill Chu Hen, was already very lucky. Now, this guy wanted to deal with him? One idiot. Chu Hen's eyes became colder and colder. His determined face revealed a sense of ruthlessness. Swoosh! Chu Hen instantly flashed in front of Yi Xian and easily dodged the opponent's long sword with a sidestep. Then, with lightning speed, he grabbed the opponent's wrist and took the treasured sword from Yi Xian's hand with a flip of his hand. What? Yi Xian turned pale with fright. This person's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Chu Hen berated coldly, and then he raised his arm to slap Yi Xian's face. F***ck off. You piece of trash, bang. A solid slap sent Yi Xian flying. Fresh blood and broken teeth flew everywhere. Under countless astonished gazes, Yi Xian, who was at the 8th level of the channel opening stage, drew a parabola in the air before heavily crashing off the stage. With a bang, a cloud of dust rose into the air. Silence. The whole place was silent. The development of the situation was a little hard to accept. This was an examination. Yi Xian, who had been so high-spirited and arrogant just a moment ago, was slapped down from the stage just like that. It would have been fine if this person was Lu Meng, but it just had to be Chu Hen, who was looked down upon by everyone. Cough, cough. Yi Xian lay on the ground, constantly coughing out blood, and could not even stand up. Everyone was secretly shocked. Just how ruthless was this slap from Chu Hen? Yi Xian's face was deformed. At this time, the surrounding crowd could not help but turn their gazes to the genius He Chao. Even though He Chao appeared to be relatively calm, one could faintly see the luster of anger in his eyes. As for the others on the stage, they were all scared silly. Immediately, Chu Hen's attention returned to Lu Meng. With a flick of his wrist, he directly threw out the long sword that he had just taken from Yi Xian's hand. Swish! The sharp sword pierced through the air like a shooting star in the night sky. Hee, just in time. Let me see what kind of ability a little bastard like you has. Lu Meng raised his eyebrows, and thick, true energy was injected into the broadsword. Buzz! In an instant, the broadsword blossomed with a resplendent golden light. Lu Meng raised his hand and slashed with the sword. With a crisp ding, the long sword that Chu Hen had thrown over was forcibly broken into 2 pieces. The 2 pieces of the sword danced in the air. The surrounding crowd was shocked, and Lu Meng was even more serious than before. However, at the same time, when the sword broke, Chu Hen executed the Big Dipper swimming dragon steps, and with his true energy gathered in both hands, he rushed towards his opponent like a ghost. In the process of moving, Chu Hen's clear black eyes quietly turned a faint purple color. Interesting. Lu Meng became more and more excited, and once again launched an attack towards Chu Hen. It's the left side. Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly, and the corner of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly. Boom! Lu Meng's broadsword landed heavily on the left side of Chu Hen, and a brutal impact blasted a huge hole in the stage. He dodged it. There was a cry of surprise from the crowd below. It was as if Chu Hen knew Lu Meng's attack beforehand, and when the broadsword fell, he instantly dodged it. However, the more shocking scene was yet to come. In the next second after Chu Hen dodged Lu Meng's attack, he suddenly stretched out his right hand and quickly grabbed the broken half of the broadsword that was dancing in the air and had yet to fall to the ground. Chu Hen used his index finger and middle finger to accurately clamp onto the small half of the sword blade. With a flick of his wrist, a xiao sound rang out and the sword blade rapidly attacked Lu Meng with the force of breaking the wind. The shadow of the sword was extremely dazzling. The hearts of the crowd were in their throats, and Lu Meng, who was caught off guard, suddenly narrowed his eyes to the size of a needle. Hiss! The broken half of the broadsword slashed across Lu Meng's right shoulder, and the sharp sword energy instantly cut open the clothes on his shoulder. The crisp sound was like a sharp awl piercing the eardrums of the crowd. Boom! Looking at the scene in front of them, everyone in the audience felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Everyone was dumbfounded, and their hearts were surging like a tide. The entire square was suddenly ushered in an unprecedented silence. Even when He Chao of the previous group had completed the killing blow, it was not as shocking as this. Heavens, what is this guy's background? The crowd could not help but exclaim and shake their heads. The way they looked at Chu Hen had completely changed. He Xian, who had already crawled up from the ground, was shocked and angry. His fists were clenched so tightly that they made cracking sounds, and his swollen face was filled with anger. Good, good. Too beautiful, junior brother Chu Hen. Haozi's cheers and applause broke the silence of the arena. The frozen atmosphere was broken, and the entire arena was set off in a chaotic clamor. Li Wei, Lu Ming, and the other Bright Moon Martial House instructors also came back to their senses. The last group's assessment has ended, Li Wei loudly shouted. Many of the students on the stage let out a long sigh of relief. Each and every one of them looked at Chu Hen with more or less a hint of awe in their eyes. Junior brother Chu Hen, you are too amazing, haha. Haozi directly jumped onto the stage, his pair of small eyes full of light. You're really good at hiding your strength. You made me worry about you all the time. Chu Hen also revealed a relaxed smile. It was just a coincidence. Luck was more involved. This is not because your luck is good. Lu Ming walked in front of the two of them, looking at Chu Hen with a rather appreciative gaze, and said, You are very good. Although he had suffered from Chu Hen's killing blow, Lu Ming's personality was still very optimistic, and he did not feel ashamed because of this. Many thanks for instructor Lu Ming's praise. In terms of true strength, I am simply not enough in front of instructor. Ha ha. Lu Ming brightly laughed. You really know how to talk. I like it. Ha ha. It was very obvious that Lu Ming quite approved of Chu Hen. Many of the people in the audience were secretly envious. Before he had officially become a student of the Bright Moon Martial House, Chu Hen had already received Lu Ming's appreciation. In the future, the Martial House would definitely focus on training him. As for He Xian and He Chao, their limelight had long been stolen. Especially He Xian, not being in the limelight was secondary. The key was that he had completely lost his face. In front of so many people, he had been slapped in the face by Chu Hen. His face had been thrown to the ground. Today's examination has ended. Li Wei climbed onto the stage and loudly announced, We will decide whether or not you can enter the Bright Moon Martial House based on your performance in the examination. Tomorrow morning, we will announce the list of people who have been accepted at the entrance of the house. You can go back and rest now. Shortly after, in the midst of a noisy and chaotic discussion, everyone left one after another. Accompanied by Haozi, Chu Hen walked towards the direction of the gate. Hee, Junior Chu Hen, you were really too cool just now. Senior Haozi, you've said this many times already. Chu Hen smiled and shook his head helplessly. Is that so? Haozi rubbed his nose and smiled crookedly. Just at that moment, two figures suddenly blocked Chu Hen's and Lin Feng's path. An unconcealable sharpness was emitted from one of the figures. Those cold eyes were like two rays of swordlight, causing people to feel awe. He Chao. Haozi's expression changed slightly. He did not need to think to know that these two people were the two brothers, He Chao and He Xian. After injuring someone, you want to leave just like that? He Chao crossed his arms in front of him. The corners of his mouth curled up in a smile that was not a smile. He Xian, who was behind him, had a fierce look in his eyes. However, his swollen face looked quite comical. What do you want? Before Chu Hen could speak, Haozi shouted in a deep voice. It's none of your business. Get out of my way. He Xian shouted fiercely. Chu Hen smiled indifferently. There was not the slightest hint of fear between his brows. May I ask why the two of you are blocking my way? Stop pretending. He Xian scolded. I don't know how to pretend. If you want to rely on me for compensation, I'm sorry, but I don't have it. You. He Xian gritted his teeth in hatred. He Chao smiled. His smile became even more sinister as he looked at Chu Hen mockingly. Don't be too arrogant for someone from a small place like Flame City. I don't know how to be arrogant. I only know that if someone offends me, I will definitely return the favor. If there is nothing else, I will leave first. With that, Chu Hen and Haozi left. He Xian frowned and wanted to stop them. Chapter 25. Nighttime. The imperial city was bustling with people and carriages. The city was brightly lit, the wine was green, the music was red, and the music was dancing. It exuded the charm of a nation's capital. In a magnificent restaurant, men and women dressed in luxurious clothes could be seen everywhere enjoying themselves and drinking to their heart's content. "You two, this way please." Stepping on the wide steps, they walked through the long hallway with light. Under the guidance of a young man, Li Wei and Lu Meng, the two instructors of the Bright Moon Martial House, were brought to a private room on the second floor. "You two, please come in." The man politely nodded and gently pushed the door open. The first thing that came into view was a table full of delicacies, wine and delicacies. In the room sat a middle-aged man. The man's appearance was very ordinary. If he turned around and disappeared into the sea of people, people would quickly forget what he looked like. But it was this ordinary-looking man that gave off an inexplicable sense of danger. "I waited for a long time, Instructor Li Wei, Instructor Lu Meng." The middle-aged man faintly smiled. His deep voice was like rolling thunder. Li Wei and Lu Meng looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. "Who are you? What business do you have with us?" Li Wei opened his mouth to ask and followed Lu Meng into the room. "You two please sit. No need to stand on ceremony," the middle-aged man said lightly. He slowly picked up the wine jug beside him and poured the fragrant wine into the 2 cups on the table. The confusion in the two's hearts grew. Lu Meng frowned and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? If you don't explain clearly, I don't have the time to accompany you here." Instructor Lu Meng, don't be anxious." The middle-aged man smiled and gently put down the wine jug. He calmly looked at the two and said, "I invited you two here because I have something to ask of you." "Oh." Li Wei and Lu Meng were slightly surprised. This afternoon, there was a person called Chu Hen who participated in the Bright Moon Martial House's examination. Chu Hen? The two were even more surprised. The other party actually found them because of Chu Hen? "If you have something to say, just say it. Don't beat around the bush," Li Wei replied. The middle-aged man still had a calm expression. He calmly took out 2 wooden boxes from behind him and placed them on the table. The moment the wooden boxes were opened, a dazzling light shone out. There were more than 10 translucent, colorful crystals in each of the 2 wooden boxes. From the color of the crystal stone and the flowing lines inside, it was definitely a high-grade primordial crystal stone. "What do you mean?" Li Wei asked with a slight change in his tone. It's our first time meeting. This is a greeting gift for the 2 of you." The middle-aged man smiled with great interest. "There is no such thing as an undeserved reward. You should take back your things," Lu Meng said coldly. "Since the item has been given, there's no such thing as taking it back." The middle-aged man's voice paused for a moment before he continued. "However, I hope that the 2 of you can help me with the matter that I've asked of you." "What are you trying to say?" "Tomorrow, when the Bright Moon Martial House releases the enrollment list, I don't want to see the 2 words Chu Hen." "What?" Li Wei and Lu Meng could not help but be startled. This was the other party's goal? He actually did not want Chu Hen to enter the Bright Moon Martial House. "Why?" Lu Meng could not help but ask. "I won't elaborate on the reason. I believe that for the 2 of you, this small matter is as easy as lifting a finger." "No." Lu Meng's thick eyebrows knitted together. "Our Bright Moon Martial House does things according to the rules. Since Chu Hen has passed the examination, how can we refuse? Take back your things." Lu Meng was unwilling, but Li Wei, who was beside him, had a look of hesitation on his face. The middle-aged man smiled and stood up. "I've already said that there's no such thing as taking back something that has been given out. I'll take my leave first. The 2 of you can have a drink here." After he finished speaking, the middle-aged man immediately left the room. The air seemed to have frozen. The high-grade primordial crystal stones on the table were like gems in the night, shining brightly. These high-grade primordial crystal stones were definitely not a small fortune for the 2 of them. Even if the 2 of them did not eat or drink in the Bright Moon Martial House, it would still take them 2 to 3 years to obtain these high-grade primordial crystal stones. But now, they only needed to make a simple decision, and it would be worth 2 to 3 years of labor. But if this was the case, their conscience would inevitably be somewhat apologetic. "Are you really going to agree to that person's request?" Lu Meng stared at Li Wei. Li Wei was hesitant. This was simply a kind of struggle. After thinking for a while, Li Wei's eyes flashed with a resolute look. He opened his mouth and said, "Lu Ming, you know that these high-grade primordial crystal stones can bring us a lot of help. But if the higher-ups find out, we're finished." "That won't happen." Li Wei firmly shook his head. "It's just a new student with a better aptitude. The higher-ups will not pay attention to this kind of thing. Even if the dean finds out, he won't chase us out of the Bright Moon Marshall House. After all, the two of them had stayed in the Bright Moon Marshall House for 7 to 8 years. This was something that could be confirmed. There are geniuses everywhere. Our Bright Moon Marshall House has never lacked outstanding genius students. That Chu Hen is just one of them. The higher-ups will not care if there's one more or one less." Li Wei said slowly. He paused for a while, then continued. "Think about it again. The person who is targeting that kid is not someone we can afford to offend." Lu Ming's heart jumped, as if he had understood something. Now that he thought about it, there must be an even more extraordinary person behind the middle-aged man. The person who was really targeting Chu Hen was the person hiding behind the scenes. "I understand." Lu Ming clenched both his fists, a faint chill running down his spine. Li Wei also let out a deep breath. It's only a matter of time before Chu Hen loses his life. The reason why the other party hasn't made a move yet is most likely to be playing a game of cat and mouse. Even if Chu Hen enters the Bright Moon Marshall House in the future, I'm afraid that one day he will die. Since the outcome has already been decided, why should we meddle in other people's business? It had to be said that Li Wei was a smart person. Of course, there were countless smart people gathered in the imperial city of the Sacred Star Dynasty. After listening to the other party's analysis, Lu Ming realized that the matter was not as simple as he had imagined. Who exactly did that kid offend? Lu Ming secretly sighed, then immediately shook his head. "Forget it. I'll listen to your opinion on this matter. What a pity for a seedling." Li Wei's eyes narrowed, a touch of indifference appearing on his face. "But Chu Hen's performance today is obvious to all. What excuse should we use to reject him tomorrow?" Lu Ming asked. "Why do we need to find excuses? We just need to avoid meeting him and not answer him. Anyway, this matter will be handled by the two of us. The higher-ups won't ask, and the people below won't care. If they want to talk, let them talk. After a few days, who will care about this matter?" "That's reasonable." Lu Ming nodded, and immediately had no more worries. Other than feeling a little guilty towards Chu Hen, there were no other emotions. After that, when the two of them put the high-grade primal crystal stones in front of them into their pouches, the little bit of guilt they felt also disappeared completely. Reality was often so cruel. In the face of power and temptation, justice seemed somewhat insignificant. And in this world where people ate people, strength was the only truth to test one's strength. Late at night, the bright moonlight sprinkled down like silver frost. A unique courtyard appeared tranquil under the moonlight. This area was where the Bright Moon Marshall House's students lived. Ordinary students lived in a courtyard with a few people. Only the top geniuses of the Marshall House could have their own private courtyard. It was obvious that this was a private courtyard. On the left side of the courtyard, there was an open-air stone pavilion. At this moment, a young girl sat on the stone pavilion. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and she wore a white evening dress. The bright moonlight shone on her body, making her snow-white skin look like beautiful jade. She had a delicate oval face with delicate facial features. She was beautiful beyond compare, like a fairy in the night. At this moment, the girl slowly opened her beautiful eyes, and a cold aura quietly appeared. This person was none other than Long Zhan's youngest daughter, Long Qingyang's younger sister, and Chu Hen's unrelated second sister, Long Xuanshuang. It's been so many days, he should be reporting to Tifeng Province. Long Xuanshuang's beautiful eyes wandered, and her red lips moved slightly as she muttered to herself. A few days ago, she had received a letter from her father, Long Zhan, saying that Chu Hen had been admitted to Tifeng Province, and that she and Long Qingyang should go to the relay station to receive him. However, because of her own reasons, Long Xuanshuang had not left the house for several days. Just as Long Xuan Xuan was hesitating about whether or not to visit Chu Hen the next day, an uncontrollable cyclone suddenly gushed out of her body. Then, with Long Xuan Xuan at the center, the entire stone pavilion was covered in a thin layer of frost. Sigh. Long Xuan Xuan sighed softly. The power of the Ice Soul battle body was so uncontrollable, and it was much more domineering than the ordinary battle body level bloodline limit. Forget it. I'll go after a while. With Big Brother by his side, there shouldn't be any problems that can't be solved. Immediately, Long Xuan Xuan closed her eyes again and entered a state of cultivation. The stars in the sky gradually disappeared. The sky gradually turned white. When the first ray of dawn shone through the layers of clouds, Chu Hen opened his eyes in the room, and there was a hint of anticipation in his clear black eyes. Chapter 26. Bright Moon Marshall House. A bustling crowd gathered at the entrance of the house. The crowd was packed, and all sorts of noises rose and fell. On the notice board at the entrance of the house was a rectangular piece of red paper. The name list on the paper was that of the new students who had passed the assessment and had been accepted by the Bright Moon Marshall House. At that very moment, Chu Hen's face was like frost as he stood in front of the notice board. His pair of eyes that revealed a chilling intent became increasingly deep. The surrounding crowd all looked at Chu Hen with a peculiar gaze. Each and every one of them whispered to each other and whispered to each other. Hee, Junior Chu Hen, why are you here so early? A young figure suddenly scuttled to Chu Hen's side. It was Haozi, whom he had met yesterday. Chu Hen did not speak, but the coldness on his face became even more intense. But seeing that Chu Hen's expression was not right, Haozi asked in confusion, What's wrong, Junior? You've already entered our school. Are you still not happy? Look, is my name on it? Chu Hen replied calmly. Your name? Haozi was even more confused. He immediately widened his pair of mouse eyes and looked from top to bottom on the notice board, but he could not find Chu Hen's name. Nothing? How could that be? If even Chu Hen could not enter the Bright Moon Marshall School, then everyone who had participated in the assessment yesterday should have been eliminated. Haozi rubbed his eyes and once again carefully looked from top to bottom, but he still could not find the two words Chu Hen. In other words, Chu Hen had really been rejected. F***, what's going on? There's no reason. There must be a mistake. There must be a mistake. Haozi raised his hand and patted Chu Hen's shoulder. Junior Chu Hen, wait here for me. I'll go and ask Teacher Li Wei. They must have missed it. Don't worry, wait here. With that, Haozi squeezed through the crowd and ran into the school gate. However, there was not much anticipation on Chu Hen's face. First it was Tifeng Province, then the Mammoth Marshall House, and now the Bright Moon Marshall School. If this was a coincidence, even a 3-year-old would not believe it. There must be an unknown mastermind behind all of this. Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief. Under the different gazes of the surrounding people, he turned around and walked away. Chu Hen did not intend to wait for Haozi to come out. He knew that Haozi would not be able to reveal anything. Yo, Junior Chu Hen, where are you going? The school's gate is over there. Just as Chu Hen was about to leave, an ear-piercing voice of disdain rang out. In the next instant, two familiar figures immediately blocked his path. It's you two dogs blocking my way again. Chu Hen looked coldly at Yi Chao and He Xian. Don't make it sound so bad. Yi Chao had a mocking smile on his face. Hee, I originally want to have a good exchange with you in the school, but I didn't think that you wouldn't even have the right to enter the Bright Moon Marshall House. You really disappoint me. On the side, He Xian was even more pleased with himself, adding insult to injury based on the current situation. Chu Hen was already in a bad mood. Now that he was provoked by these two, his handsome face immediately darkened. Get lost, don't bark in front of me. What did you say? Say it again if you have the guts. He Xian shouted. I said you two stupid dogs get lost and bark. I don't have a bone to reward you. His words were like needles, heavy and deafening. The crowd at the Bright Moon Academy's gate was immediately attracted by the scene. They surrounded the area, waiting to see a good show. In truth, everyone was looking forward to a fight between Chu Hen and He Chao. As the new students who had killed Lu Ming yesterday, they wanted to know who would win. I knew that Senior He Chao would cause trouble for Chu Hen today. I guessed it too. Yesterday, Xian's face was swollen from Chu Hen's slap, and he even lost a few teeth. It would be strange if He Chao could take this lying down. But then again, Senior, He Chao has opened 9 martial meridians. In terms of cultivation level, he should be a level higher than Chu Hen. Moreover, although both of them killed Lu Meng yesterday, Senior He Chao obviously relied on his strength. That Chu Hen had more or less luck in it. Comparing the two of them, Senior He Chao would definitely win. That's reasonable. The crowd at the side of the arena discussed animatedly, as if they wanted to see the world in chaos. He Chao slowly walked forward, and the corner of his mouth rose into a cold arc. He Chao, who had the spiritual sword battle physique bloodline, exuded a sharp aura like that of a sharp sword. This was only the strength of the early stage of the battle physique bloodline, but he could already use it so skillfully. The current He Chao already had the potential to become an expert. Looks like you still don't understand the situation. He Chao smiled coldly and said, "You're not a student of the Bright Moon Martial House, and you're not in the academy right now. If you anger me, I'll kill you." He Chao spat out an extremely menacing voice. The surrounding crowd subconsciously took a few steps back. However, there was not the slightest bit of fear on Chu Hen's face. His voice was even colder. "I advise you not to provoke me. Otherwise, I'll kill you both first." Hiss! As soon as these words came out, everyone present could not help but secretly gasp. Arrogance. Absolute arrogance. One had to know that among the people of the same age in the capital, there were only a handful of people who dared to say such words to He Chao. And this Chu Hen, who came from a small flame city, dared to say such words to him. It was simply shocking. Buzz. Suddenly, a cold, murderous intent erupted from He Chao's body, and a sharp sword immediately appeared in his hand. I'd like to see what qualifications you have to say such shameless words today. As you wish. Chu Hen was also furious. From yesterday until today, he had been bullied. If he continued to endure it, he would be a coward. Whoosh! He Chao's body moved, and he took the initiative to attack. Rich true chi quickly climbed up the sword, and the airflow became restless. "Eat my sword!" The swift and fierce sword stabbed towards Chu Hen in a charging manner. Facing this simple and powerful sword, Chu Hen did not dodge. Instead, he used the Big Dipper wandering dragon steps and faced his opponent with the agility of a dragon. "You're courting death." He Chao's eyes flashed fiercely. His long sword trembled, and a few sharp sword chis followed the momentum. Chu Hen's heart hardened, and he ignored the few sword chis. One of his hands turned into a palm, and he struck his opponent's chest with lightning speed. The crowd at the side was shocked. This was clearly a method of exchanging injury for injury. Even He Chao did not expect Chu Hen to be so ruthless. Bang! As Chu Hen's body was scratched by the sword chis, his right palm also firmly imprinted on He Chao's chest. Under the assault of the hidden force that was like a surging tide, a ball of scattered true essence exploded between the two of them. Chu Hen and He Chao continuously retreated backwards. "Bastard, let's see how you die today." Not far away, Xian saw that He Chao did not gain any advantage and used the momentum of the 8th level of the channel opening realm to rush towards Chu Hen. A disdainful smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. When the opponent was less than a meter away from him, he nimbly flashed to the opponent's right side. Then, with lightning speed, he raised his hand and slapped Xian on the right side of his face. F***CK off. Pa! The crisp sound of the slap was abnormally loud, and the hearts of the audience trembled. The scene from yesterday repeated itself. Under countless extremely strange gazes, Xian was once again sent flying. With a bang, he landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of broken teeth and blood. In an instant, everyone in the room could no longer remain calm. In 2 consecutive days, he had been slapped twice by the same person. This could be considered as losing all his face. Everyone was even a little curious as to how many teeth were left in Xian's mouth. "Stinking brat, you deserve to die." He Chao was unable to restrain his anger. Chu Hen was simply slapping his face. All of you stop, without waiting for the two to start fighting again. A deep, angry shout came from the direction of the Bright Moon Marshall House's main gate. Everyone's hearts jumped, and their gazes turned in that direction. They saw a middle-aged man walking over. Housie, who had previously helped Chu Hen ask about the cause of the matter, followed behind him. Everyone recognized that this middle-aged man was one of the teachers in charge of yesterday's examination. Junior brother Chu Hen, are you all right? Housie hurriedly walked forward and asked. Chu Hen shook his head, indicating that he was fine. You are really too impudent. How dare you fight at the academy's gate? The middle-aged man reprimanded with a heavy expression. He Chao withdrew his aura, and his expression softened a little, but his eyes were still filled with coldness. Teacher Meng, it was someone who did not know how to appreciate kindness. I only wanted to persuade him not to be so arrogant, but I did not expect him to not listen and even attack. Humph, Chu Hen sneered. Your strength is not much, but your ability to bullshit is quite good. Enough. The middle-aged man called Teacher Meng frowned and said unhappily, whoever dares to fight here, don't blame me for not being polite. The accepted students prepare to report to the academy. The rest of the irrelevant people, please leave as soon as possible. Did you hear that? Irrelevant people, don't be a hindrance here, He Chao said arrogantly. Teacher Meng, why was junior brother Chu Hen not accepted? You have to give me an explanation. Housie asked. I'm not sure. Teacher Meng's eyes flashed with confusion, and he immediately said, if you want to ask about this, go find Teacher Li Wei and Teacher Lu Meng. I'm only responsible for reporting. But Teacher Li Wei does not want to see anyone. There is nothing I can do about it. Although Teacher Meng's words were simple, he did not give any reason to reject Chu Hen. However, from his indifferent expression, one could vaguely see the hidden meaning in his words. That was whether the Bright Moon Marshall House wanted him or not. It was only a decision, and there was no need for any reason. Chu Hen was naturally aware of this layer of hidden meaning. Immediately, a sneer appeared on his face. Without saying anything more, he turned around and left. Junior brother Chu Hen, Housie shouted anxiously. Chu Hen's footsteps paused, and he turned sideways and said, Senior brother Housie, thank you for your help. I, Chu Hen, will remember your kindness. Since the Bright Moon Academy does not accept me, then I will not stay here. Then, Chu Hen left without looking back. At the same time, He Chao threw down a ruthless sentence without hesitation. I will not let this matter go. You will suffer in the future. Anytime, Chu Hen coldly retorted without the slightest trace of politeness. The resolute young man's back showed his unyielding spirit. Under the different gazes of the audience, Chu Hen gradually walked away. Chapter 27. After leaving the Bright Moon Academy, Chu Hen walked down the street with a heavy heart. The proud and aloof figure of the youth seemed out of place in the lively atmosphere of the bustling crowd. This was already the third time. Tifeng Province, Giant Elephant Marshall House, Bright Moon Academy. In just a few short days, he had encountered the same situation. Anyone would find it hard to accept this kind of trouble, but Chu Hen still didn't know the specific reason behind it. Who was it that was trying to harm him? Chu Hen was even more confused. The Lu family? Or the Yi family? Impossible. It was impossible for Yi Qing and Lu Xian's hands to reach the imperial city. After thinking for a while to no avail, Chu Hen swept away the gloomy feelings in his heart and let out a light breath. His bright eyes blossomed with a resolute light. There are so many high-ranked martial houses in the imperial city, I don't believe that I can't enter any of them. The successive blows did not wear away Chu Hen's confidence. Since he had already come to the imperial city, how could he so easily bow his head and admit defeat? If one martial house didn't want him, then he would find another one. If another martial house didn't want him, then he would find another. Chu Hen didn't believe that there would be no place for him in such a large imperial city with dozens of high-ranked martial houses. An unwavering belief filled Chu Hen's heart. Immediately, Chu Hen bought a map of the distribution of all the high-ranked martial houses in the imperial city from a random shop on the side of the road. There were two of the five most famous high-ranked martial houses, the Imperial Martial Academy and the Spirit Rhino Martial House. Among them, the Imperial Martial Academy could be said to be the leader of the five high-ranked martial houses. It was the largest, had the fewest students, but had the most famous geniuses. Then I'll go to the Imperial Martial Academy to try my luck. Chu Hen lightly clenched his fists and softly muttered. An hour later, at the entrance of the Imperial Martial Academy, our Imperial Martial Academy's recruitment period ended 2 days ago, and not just anyone can enter the Imperial Martial Academy. You can leave now. At the entrance of the dignified academy, a guard in his 30s stopped Chu Hen and said in an indifferent tone. Chu Hen's emotions fluctuated slightly, but he didn't say anything. He immediately left and headed to the next higher school, Lingxi Martial House. Hello. I wish to register for the Lingxi Martial House's entrance examination. Register here. You can come for the first round of assessment afternoon. Thank you. However, at the appointed time, afternoon. I'm sorry, but I've just received a notice that Benyuan's recruitment quota has been filled. You better go somewhere else. Looking at the cold gaze of the person in charge of registration, Chu Hen did not question the other party's sudden change of mind. Knowing that it was an excuse, Chu Hen still walked away calmly. As a result, Chu Hen had already been rejected by all 5 academies. Thus, he could only choose an ordinary martial house with an average reputation. However, in Chu Hen's opinion, even the most ordinary martial house would definitely have its own teaching characteristics. Moreover, to Chu Hen, who possessed the sacred demonic pupil body and the chaotic body, it was impossible for him to be overlooked. Even in an ordinary martial house, it was impossible for him to be buried. Of course, no matter what was said, he had no other choice. Shortly afterwards, Chu Hen followed the route on the map and headed to the next higher school. However, the development of the situation had already far exceeded Chu Hen's imagination. In the following month, the circumstances and encounters that happened to Chu Hen could be said to be exactly the same. It was shockingly similar. You've registered. Go for the assessment. Your results are not bad. You can report in tomorrow morning. I'm sorry, but you weren't accepted by our school. Your foundation is not bad, but it doesn't suit the teaching characteristics of our martial house. I suggest you go to another school. You've opened 8 martial veins. Your foundation is also very solid. Unfortunately, our martial house is full of new students. You should go somewhere else. Your aptitude is not bad. Come to our school. Someone is looking for me. Wait a moment. Oh, I'm sorry. I've just received a notice that our school will temporarily stop recruiting students. Go back and wait. I will inform you to come to the school as soon as possible. At the gate of an ordinary martial house, Chu Hen's left hand held the old blueprint that had been flipped over. Then, he used a small piece of black paint to draw an X symbol on the coordinates of a high-ranked martial house. With a glance, he saw that there were already 20 to 30 crosses on the map. People came and went at the gate of the school. All of them looked at Chu Hen with strange gazes. Look at that person. What's wrong with that person? You still don't know? That person has participated in more than 10 high martial house assessments and was rejected by more than 20 schools. He has really created a miracle in the history of the new student assessment. So he's the person who has caused a commotion in the Imperial City these days? I heard that his talent is not bad. Why does even a martial house not want him? Is there need to ask? He must have offended someone. That's really pitiful. In a few days, all the higher schools in the Imperial City will be closing time for their assessments. At that time, he'll be no different from a stray dog. The surrounding crowd whispered to each other. They pointed at Chu Hen and discussed spiritedly. Chu Hen was not moved by this. It was as if he was already used to it. Just like what the crowd said, in the past month, Chu Hen had been rejected by more than 20 higher schools. Chu Hen could recite some of the reasons for his rejection. Not only that, the news about Chu Hen had spread throughout the Imperial City. Restaurants, tea houses, streets, alleys. He could feel the strange gazes of the crowd. Of course, to the crowd, this was just a joke. No one would really care about a single person out of millions of new students. In the eyes of the crowd, Chu Hen was just one of the millions of new students. The only difference was that Chu Hen's experience was a bit more strange, and he became a joke in the crowd's leisure time. Long Xingyang had gone to the Sky Lake mountain range, and Long Shuang was still in seclusion. To Chu Hen, there was no one he could rely on. It was as if the entire world was against him. Even so, Chu Hen still firmly hid the anger and oppression that he had accumulated for a month at the bottom of his heart. It was not an exaggeration to say that if this had happened to someone else, that person would have broken down physically and mentally. They would have given up long ago. But Chu Hen was different. The ups and downs that had happened a few months ago had made Chu Hen's endurance far stronger than that of his peers. There was anger, resentment, and pressure, but Chu Hen had endured it all. He would not give up until the very last moment. Looking at the darkening sky, Chu Hen let out a long sigh of frustration. Another day had passed, and there were only 2 or 3 days left before the entrance examinations of the various martial houses in the imperial city would end. When that time comes, where should I go? At night. The stars in the night sky were hidden behind thick clouds. Even the bright moon seemed to have sensed an unusual aura and was shrouded by the clouds and dust that were like a demonic barrier. The main street of the imperial city was still brightly lit. In a luxurious restaurant, a young man with an elegant temperament held a jade wine glass in his hand. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised as he watched the seductive dance of a few seductive women in front of him. There was a blazing sun pattern on the chest area of the man's shirt. The edges of the pattern were lined with soft lines, elegant and wild, like a gear that was unfolding. Behind the young man stood a middle-aged man of around 30 years old. The man's appearance was very ordinary, and when he turned around and walked into the crowd, one would quickly forget his appearance. "Wei Han, why don't you ask me why I'm doing this?" the young man suddenly said, his indifferent tone carrying a trace of playfulness. The middle-aged man behind him bowed slightly and replied respectfully, "This subordinate only cares about listening to young master's orders and does not dare to ask about the details." "Ha ha!" The young man drank the wine in his cup in one gulp, and his handsome eyebrows slightly raised as he said with interest, "You've been with me for so many years, and you've always been a man of my word. But I think you must be very confused. Isn't he just an ant that can be pinched to death with a finger? Why do you want to play with him in the palm of your hand? Not only is it a waste of money, it's also a waste of time." Wei Han did not speak, and only listened at the side. This young master didn't do this on a whim. The young man lightly smiled and continued. "When we were in Blazing Rain City, that trash, Lu Xiao, wasn't able to deal with that fellow, and it caused Yi Yu to have a grudge in her heart. Truthfully speaking, this woman, Yi Yu, isn't as easy to tame as an ordinary woman. This woman is proud and arrogant, and doesn't really listen to me. If I want to capture her heart and make her obediently submit to me, then the capital I have to put in the beginning is indispensable." So young master thought of targeting Chu Hen. Wei Han said in a low voice, "Chu Hen ruined Yi Yu's birthday banquet, and Yi Yu naturally took it to heart and bore a grudge in her heart. Now, I've easily made Chu Hen suffer all sorts of torture in the imperial capital and suffer all sorts of blows. I've inflicted the humiliation Yi Yu suffered on Chu Hen 1,000 times over. Would this woman submit to me in the end? Or submit? Or submit?" The young man's face was filled with a complacent and confident smile after saying submit 3 times in a row. Wei Han nodded after he finished listening to the young man's explanation. Young master is indeed thoughtful. Chapter 28. Late at night, darkness shrouded all parts of the capital. At this time, even the most prosperous central area gradually returned to peace and quiet. In an ordinary restaurant and inn, Chu Hen had been living here for almost a month. From the owner of the inn to the waiters who served tea, everyone knew that there was a young man who had been rejected by more than 20 high-ranked martial houses. After the news about Chu Hen spread in the capital, even the waiters who did odd jobs in the inn had a faint sympathy in their eyes. However, the only thing Chu Hen could do was to ignore everyone's strange gazes every day. The restaurant had already closed for the day. The guests who were eating had all gone back, and the guests who were staying had already fallen asleep. In this quiet moment, Chu Hen was sitting cross-legged on the bed in his room, in a state of meditation and cultivation. To Chu Hen, training is something that cannot be missed every day. No matter how tired he was during the day, no matter how late he came back, he had never been lazy. After what happened to him these days, Chu Hen was even more convinced that in this unfair world, the only way to get fair treatment was only one way, and that was strength. Without strength, everything was empty talk. Buzz, buzz. The restless power of true essence flowed in Chu Hen's body, emitting a faint energy fluctuation. On the floor beside the bed in the room, there was a pile of primordial crystal stones. Strands of golden halo covered Chu Hen's body, emitting a hazy luster in the darkness. And in this power of true essence, two other different colors of light could be vaguely seen, namely the purple representing the demon pupil holy body and the black representing the chaotic body. The two different powers of the bloodline intertwined with each other and merged with the power of true essence. In the past month, Chu Hen's cultivation strength and the power of the bloodline complemented each other. He could clearly feel that the power of the demon pupil holy body and the chaotic body was stronger than when he was in the Flame City. Buzz! Suddenly, the true yuan in Chu Hen's body became even more chaotic. At the same time, a strange burning sensation appeared in his eyes. The true essence that flowed through his meridians became increasingly active, and Chu Hen felt the blood flow in his body rapidly accelerate. Chu Hen sat motionlessly in his original position, like a boulder. Under Chu Hen's control, the true energy of the sacred demonic eye body and the chaotic body flowed throughout his body, charging towards the ninth martial vein. The surging true essence power was like an army approaching the city. The pain of the martial vein being opened constantly spread throughout Chu Hen's body. The ninth martial vein, this was the last martial vein, and also the most important one. Chu Hen couldn't help but frown as beads of sweat appeared on his face. Rumble. At this moment, thunder suddenly rolled in Chu Hen's meditation world. In the hazy and vast galaxy, the wind rolled and the clouds were entangled and the lightning crisscrossed. Shortly afterwards, a pair of huge, shocking demonic eyes appeared in the world. The bewitching purple pupils exuded a terrifying, destructive aura. In the next moment, a purple brilliance that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas surged over like a surging tide. Boom! Immediately afterwards, Chu Hen's ninth martial vein, which was as sturdy as a mountain, was suddenly broken. The surging true essence was like a flood that had broken through a dam. The surging power flowed unimpeded through all the meridians in Chu Hen's body, and the aura that erupted from his body increased by more than 10 times. The ninth martial vein had been opened. Chu Hen opened his eyes, and a demonic, purple luster surged in the depths of his eyes. After more than a month, Chu Hen had unexpectedly broken through the last martial vein and reached the 9th level of the channel opening realm. Even the most outstanding genius in the Imperial City would not be able to match this speed. Feeling the surging power in his body, a knowing smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. Although it was only a gap of 1 martial vein, the strength of the true essence was nearly 10 times stronger. If he were to meet the genius of the Bright Moon Academy, He Chao, again, Chu Hen had absolute confidence that he would be able to defeat him within 10 moves. Rustle. Suddenly, Chu Hen's ears twitched, and he heard a series of light footsteps outside the window. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, and a trace of cold intent was quietly released. Bang! The sound of the door being kicked open was particularly heavy in the dark night. In the next moment, 2 masked men in black quickly rushed into the room, and their shining swords stabbed and slashed at the bedding on the bed. Wait! One of the men in black stopped and pointed at the empty bed and said, "He's gone." How? The other man was also confused. He must have escaped. Chase! Chase! Just as the 2 men in black turned to leave the room, a cold, mocking voice suddenly came from above. Hee, are you looking for me? What? The 2 men were shocked and suddenly raised their heads, only to see a ghostly figure hanging on the beam of the room. Before the 2 could react, Chu Hen directly jumped down, and with lightning speed, he locked the neck of one of the men in black. He exerted force in his arm, and with a crack, the throat was broken. The man let out a muffled sound and collapsed to the ground like a pile of mud. At the same time, Chu Hen casually took the sword from the man's hand. "You?" The other man in black was shocked and quickly raised the long sword in his hand to chop at Chu Hen. However, Chu Hen's speed was not just a little faster than his opponent's. With a backhand slash, the bright sword's shadow dazzled the eyes. Hiss! Blood splattered, and an arm holding the long sword was directly thrown away. Ah! An incomparably shrill scream reverberated in the dark night, making one's hair stand on end. Following that, a sword light flashed, and along with the scream, a human head flew out of the door, rolling on the ground for over 10 meters before coming to a stop. "Humph! Kill him!" In the next second, a rude shout came from outside the room. The scattered footsteps on the stone steps were hurried and heavy. Chu Hen frowned, and listening to the movement, it turned out that a lot of people came. Bang, bang. Immediately, the door and window were broken, and 3 men in black broke in. Great waterfall, mountain-destroying palm. Chu Hen shouted, and the surging power of the true essence quickly gathered in his palms. The airflow in the whole room instantly became extremely chaotic, and circles of golden cyclones condensed and danced in his palms, like the holy essence of the sun pouring down, dazzling. In the next moment, Chu Hen raised his palms, and an incomparably overbearing golden palm strength, comparable to the landslide of a mountain, poured down with the power to split mountains. Bang! The tables, chairs, and cabinets in the room were overturned in an instant, and the 3 men in black directly flew out and fell to the ground one by one. Blood spurted out, and broken internal organs flew everywhere. However, the outside of the room was quickly occupied by men in black, and there were at least a dozen of them. In addition to the 5 that he had just killed, there were nearly 20 killers. They were murderous, and they were as fierce as wolves. Chu Hen's expression changed slightly, and he thought, so many people came? Without any extra time to think, Chu Hen quickly blasted open a window, grabbed the long sword of a dead killer, and jumped out of the room, and hurriedly disappeared into the darkness. Chase! The group of black-clothed assassins did not hesitate in the slightest as they chased after Chu Hen without hesitation. At this time, it was already late at night, and even the lights in the central area of the capital were almost out. The area where Chu Hen lived was relatively close to the edge of the capital. The streets were already empty, and it was so quiet that only the faint barking of dogs could be heard in the distant streets. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and the moon and stars could not be seen. The streets were pattering, and there was even a drizzle. Chu Hen's expression was tense, and his brows were full of seriousness, but his pair of deep and cold eyes did not have a hint of panic or fear. After a month, the mastermind behind the scenes finally did not want to wait any longer. He should have known that those people could not wait any longer, but there was nothing he could do. In the darkness, more than a dozen killers in black with sharp weapons in their hands were constantly closing the distance between them and Chu Hen. The air was getting colder, and the fine raindrops fell on his face. If I go any further, I will soon reach the east gate. The gate must be closed at this time, and it is not possible to escape, Chu Hen thought to himself. After thinking for a short while, his gaze fell on a big locust tree at the end of the street ahead. The big locust tree was more than 10 meters tall, and it was as thick as 2 or 3 people wrapping their arms around it. Its branches and leaves were lush, and it was full of vitality. With a thought, Chu Hen moved and leaped up the tree. Ta, ta, the sound of hurried and messy footsteps could be heard. In less than 10 seconds, the group of assassins in black had caught up with him. Looking at the empty street, the killers in black slowed down. Where is he? Why is he gone? One of the killers in black said. He was here just now. Look around. He can't have gone far. If we don't kill this brat today, we will have to bear the consequences. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we must find him. The fierce tone was full of ruthlessness, and pairs of sinister eyes were shining with the luster of a wolf. Just as the two assassins in black arrived at the base of the large pagoda tree, a swift and fierce figure leaped down. The dazzling sword light was like a meteor that streaked across the night sky. Hiss! The sound of a sharp weapon cutting through flesh was clear and ear-piercing. The bodies of the two assassins in black trembled. Their pupils were tightly locked, and their mouths were slightly agape. A thin red line vaguely appeared on their necks and thickened. There he is. The assassins were shocked and enraged at the same time. They never thought that this immature brat would kill 7 of their companions. Kill! Powerful killing intent erupted from the dozen or so vicious killers. They were all like starving, rabid dogs lunging at food. Facing this group of blood-soaked, vicious people, Chu Hen's face was silently covered in frost. With a thought, he released the bloodline power of the chaotic body, and a ball of black light quickly climbed up the sword in his hand. Chapter 29. Kill. A dark night, a murderous sky. The dozen or so vicious black-clothed assassins were like a pack of extremely hungry rabid dogs pouncing towards food. They all exploded with a strong killing intent as they charged towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's deep eyes also flickered with a vicious light. The bloodline power of the chaotic body was released, and the sword in Chu Hen's hand immediately began to spit out strange black flames. Go die, bastard! One of the assassins charged at Chu Hen first and swung his shining blade at Chu Hen's head. A cold light flashed across the corner of Chu Hen's eyes. He used the Northern Dipper roaming dragon steps and dodged to the side. As he dodged the attack, he clenched his left hand into a fist and punched at the assassin's head. Hum! As he moved, several black cyclones gathered on top of Chu Hen's fist with a rapidly rotating momentum. The powerful wave of air gave rise to waves of dangerous coldness of death. Fist of 7 slaughter. Boom! With a muffled sound like heavy objects colliding, the assassin who had been hit in the head by Chu Hen was immediately sent flying backwards powerlessly. Less than 2 meters away, the hidden force of the fist of 7 slaughter exploded in the assassin's body. Bang! Along with a violent explosion, the man's head exploded like a watermelon. Red and white liquid burst out wantonly and splashed everywhere. The assassins' expressions changed greatly. They all felt a deep chill from the bottom of their hearts. No one had thought that the young brat before them would be so vicious. Mountain-shattering palm. Without waiting for the crowd to react, Chu Hen quickly rushed in front of the other assassin. His palm energy, which had the power to break through 10,000 kilograms, shot towards the other party. Don't be too happy. You can't even break through my defense with your strength. The assassin was at the 9th stage of the channel opening realm. In his knowledge, Chu Hen had only opened 8 martial meridians. No matter how much of a genius he was, it was impossible for him to injure him with a single palm strike. However, a mocking smile appeared on Chu Hen's face. A faint purple light flashed through Chu Hen's eyes. When his palm energy landed on his opponent's body, the power of the great waterfall, mountain-crushing palm suddenly increased by several times. Bang! Along with the violent vibrations, the chest of the channel opening stage 9th level assassin was forcefully caved in, and a crisp kacha sound pierced everyone's eardrums. His sternum was completely shattered, and his internal organs spurted out from his mouth. How could this be? All the assassins turned pale with fright. This guy was actually so strong? A bunch of useless good-for-nothings. Chu Hen sneered as a strong, killing intent erupted from his body. In an instant, Chu Hen charged into the crowd of killers with an unstoppable force, mercilessly slaughtering them. Most of these assassins were at the 7th or 8th stage of the channel opening realm. Only 1 or 2 of them were at the 9th stage of the channel opening realm. With such a lineup, killing someone who had only opened 8 martial meridians was as easy as flipping one's hand. It could be said that according to their previous estimates, it was too much of a waste for so many people to deal with a single Chu Hen. However, no one could have expected that Chu Hen had coincidentally opened his 9th martial meridian that very night. Furthermore, The power of the two bloodline boundaries caused Chu Hen's every move to be fatal. Most importantly, Chu Hen's ruthlessness caused the assassins in black to feel a chill in their hearts. Once their hearts were in chaos, they could not stop the footsteps of death. Kill blood splattered everywhere, and cries of agony could be heard. Blade light and sword shadows were dazzling. Broken limbs were constantly thrown out, and broken internal organs were scattered everywhere. Even though it was Chu Hen's first time killing someone tonight, Chu Hen would not show any mercy to these people who wanted to harm his life. Killing was killing. If he did not kill them, he would be the one to lose his life. The pressure and anger that had accumulated in his heart for a month was finally released. Being rejected by more than 20 high-ranked martial houses, being ridiculed by countless people, and full of humiliation turned into surging killing intent. One by one, the assassins in black fell to the ground. In the blink of an eye, there were only 3 or 4 left. Whoosh! Suddenly, a rapid wind-breaking force came from behind. Chu Hen's eyes turned cold as he turned around and threw the sharp sword in his hand. Insignificant skill. A rough and deep voice sounded. A burly black shadow raised his hand and knocked the sharp sword away. He then leaped in front of Chu Hen and struck out with his palm. Chu Hen made up his mind. He did not dodge at all and faced the opponent's palm attack head-on. Bang! A ball of true yuan exploded in midair. An illusory golden wave spread out like water ripples. Dead leaves, gravel, and dust scattered on the ground. Chu Hen suddenly felt his arm go numb, as if he had been hit by a mountain. He took a few steps back. A salty taste rushed up his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Leader, when the 4 assassins in black saw the newcomer, their eyes lit up as if they had seen their savior. They heaved a sigh of relief. The newcomer was a tall, middle-aged man. His face was ferocious, and there were a few twisted scars on his face. The aura of a level 1 yuan opening realm martial artist emanated from his body. The man frowned as he looked at the corpses of the assassins in black lying on the ground. His eyes were about to spit fire. Little bastard, you really deserve to die. Chu Hen casually wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and coldly looked at the other party. Who are you people? Why are you making life difficult for me? Go ask the king of hell. The middle-aged man's face was sinister. To kill this little bastard, so many of his brothers had died. It was beyond his wildest dreams. Of course, after a big battle, Chu Hen was like a lamp in a well. The other party was like a fish on a chopping board. Die, bastard. However, Chu Hen smiled. The corner of his majestic mouth caused the assassins to feel a chill down their spines. Before this, I have something to show you. Don't play tricks in front of me. I never fall for it. The middle-aged man with a ferocious face did not intend to give Chu Hen any time to speak. He rushed towards Chu Hen with a dangerous, murderous aura, giving him a fatal blow. At this moment, Chu Hen suddenly closed his eyes. The middle-aged man revealed a sinister smile. From his point of view, Chu Hen had obviously given up on resisting and was calmly waiting for death. Just as the middle-aged man's attack was about to land on Chu Hen's body, something that no one expected happened. Chu Hen suddenly opened his eyes. His originally pitch-black and clear pupils strangely turned into an obscure purple, and in the depths of his purple pupils, there was a strange black dot. Boom! In the next moment, a shocking deterrent force rose from Chu Hen's eyes. The piercingly cold aura made the people around him tremble, especially the middle-aged man who received Chu Hen's demonic gaze. An endless aura of death surged in his heart. One-star demon pupil, ray of silence. The black dot inside the purple pupils rotated rapidly. Chu Hen's pupils shrank slightly. Suddenly, 2 illusory purple beams of light burst out from his eyes. The illusory purple beams of light were like the flowing light of thousands of years. Like a graceful arrow, they tore through the air and directly hit the middle-aged man in front of him. His bright red blood splattered, under the shocked gazes of the other assassins in black beside him. The middle-aged man's chest was directly pierced. Two bloody holes the size of a baby's fist appeared in front of everyone's eyes. You? The middle-aged man's tiger-like body trembled. Both of his eyes were wide open, and they were about to split open. Looking at Chu Hen, his gaze was filled with dense disbelief and endless fear. I won't send you off. A cold and mocking laughter came out of Chu Hen's mouth. The middle-aged man's pupils shrank. A sword light flashed, and his round head flew off. Blood spurted out like a fountain and shot up 2 to 3 meters high. Bang! The middle-aged man's headless body fell to the ground. The hearts of the assassins in black beside him trembled violently. Escape! They had no other thoughts except to escape. However, how could Chu Hen let go of a fish that escaped the net? 3 consecutive sounds of flesh being pierced echoed in the night. The last assassin in black was so scared that his face turned pale. He cried for his father and mother and knelt in front of Chu Hen. "Master, spare me. Master, spare me. Please let me go." They were all dead. In the blink of an eye, they all died in front of him. The last assassin's psychological defense completely collapsed. He looked at Chu Hen in horror, like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. Chu Hen held his long sword diagonally. Blood kept flowing down the blade. He looked coldly at the last assassin and said indifferently, "Who sent you to kill me? Tell me, and I'll spare your life." The assassin's body and mind trembled. He clenched his fists tightly. His face was filled with even more fear. "If you want to live, answer my question," Chu Hen said coldly. "Ha ha ha." The assassin suddenly laughed miserably. "It's impossible. If I betray him, I'll die a fate worse than death. I can't escape. I can't escape." As soon as he finished speaking, the assassin took out a dagger and stabbed it into his own heart. Warm blood flowed out happily. The last assassin died on the spot. Seeing the scene in front of him, Chu Hen's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. His handsome face was filled with seriousness. Who was the mastermind behind the scenes? This assassin chose to die rather than reveal the identity of that person. How terrifying was that person? Why was he so fearful? It seemed that he had unknowingly provoked a ruthless character. Chu Hen frowned even more. However, even so, he had no fear. No matter who the other party was, the debt owed to him must be repaid. Moreover, it must be repaid in double. Chapter 30. It was a cold day and a cruel night. On the dark and deserted street, Chu Hen's gaze was solemn as he stared at the ground littered with corpses. Broken corpses and blood flowed all over the ground. Such a scene was truly a ghastly sight. This was the first time Chu Hen had killed people, and he had killed more than 20 people. The excessive consumption of true yuan made Chu Hen's face look especially pale. He had to admit that it was really dangerous this time. Fortunately, the demon pupil's sacred body has broken through to the realm of 1 star. Otherwise, it would really be dangerous. Chu Hen let out a long sigh of relief. The demonic purple light in his pupils faintly disappeared, returning to its normal pitch-black color. Speaking of which, he was really lucky. During this month, Chu Hen had been practicing nonstop every night. A few days ago, he felt that the bloodline power of the demon pupil's sacred body had become more and more restless. When he opened the 9th martial meridian tonight, the demon pupil had also completed its evolution. He had been given a new eye technique, the power of nirvana. Just as Li Wuxiang had said, the power of nirvana swept out of his eyes and was extremely lethal. This was the first time Chu Hen had used it, and he had directly killed Wu Xiao, who was at the first stage of the natal opening realm. Chu Hen was very satisfied with such a shocking power. "I'm really looking forward to what kind of eye technique the demon pupil's sacred body will give me in the future." Chu Hen's eyes were burning with passion. Of course, this was not a place where he could stay for long. After taking a few breaths, Chu Hen suddenly walked towards the corpse of the burly Yuan opening realm man who had rushed over later. The man's chest had been pierced by the power of nirvana, and his head had been removed. He was already dead. Chu Hen squatted beside the corpse and tried to search for something on the corpse's body. Then he found a token. The token was about half the size of a palm and was square. There were exquisite patterns around it. and in the middle was the symbol of a scorching sun. The scorching sun symbol was elegant and wild, like a golden wheel with sharp teeth. Chu Hen narrowed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "No matter who you are, I will definitely find you." With that, Chu Hen put away the gold medal. A resolute light flashed in his eyes, and he turned around without looking back. The hustle and bustle of the morning ushered in a brand new day in the capital. On the bustling street, people came and went in an endless stream. Make way, make way. A fully armed army quickly headed in one direction, and the crowd on the street parted to make way for them. They were both in awe and confusion. What happened? So early in the morning? You still don't know? There was a murder in the east of the city last night. It's just a murder case. People die every day. More than 20 people died this time. You didn't see the scene. It was so tragic that people almost peed their pants. Speaking of which, the culprit is really ruthless. At a noodle and wonton stall on the side of the street, Chu Hen drank warm tea and listened calmly to the discussions of the crowd around him. "Boss, a bowl of Yangchun noodles." Along with a loud voice, a middle-aged man in his 30s sat down opposite Chu Hen. "Sure, please wait for a moment, sir," the stall owner responded enthusiastically. Facing the middle-aged man sitting in front of him, Chu Hen did not show any emotion. He did not even raise his head and continued to drink his tea quietly. "Which school are you going to today?" the middle-aged man suddenly asked. Chu Hen was slightly startled. Raising his gaze, he saw that it was a middle-aged man who had a warm smile on his face, giving off a candid feeling. "Do we know each other?" Chu Hen asked. "Hee, you don't know me, but I know you. You participated in 18 assessments and were rejected by 27 high-ranked martial schools. Your perseverance really makes me sweat. My name is Song Chung-Lai. Nice to meet you, hee." If this sentence came from someone else's mouth, it would most likely be sarcastic. However, the other party did not have any sarcasm on his face. "What are you trying to say?" Chu Hen's tone was still indifferent. Song Chung-Lai's thick eyebrows twitched slightly. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. This 16-year-old boy was actually so calm. Song Chung-Lai smiled and replied, "I want to say that you're running out of time. No matter which high-ranked martial school you go to, the result will be the same." "What does that have to do with you?" Chu Hen did not know what the person in front of him was planning. Under such circumstances, he had to be extremely vigilant. "All right, I'll get straight to the point. I came to find you today because I want you to go to a high-ranked martial school." "Which martial school?" "Heavenly Star." Song Chung-Lai spat out these two words clearly and heavily. "Tensei Prefecture?" As soon as these words came out, no matter how calm Chu Hen was, he could not help but feel a ripple in his heart. Speaking of which, Tensei Prefecture could be said to be famous. There is probably no one in the entire Sacred Star dynasty who did not know of this academy, because it was the worst high-ranked martial school in the capital city. The corner of Chu Hen's eye twitched uncontrollably, and his expression became a little strange. "Sir, your Yangchun noodles." "Thank you." Song Chung-Lai looked at the big bowl of noodles in front of him happily. He took a pair of chopsticks from the bamboo tube and began to eat with big bites. Chu Hen did not say anything else. He took out a few pieces of silver and placed them on the table, then stood up to leave. "I'm in a hurry. I'll be leaving first. I told you that you're running out of time. No high-ranked martial school in the capital city will accept you. You know this very well," Song Chung-Lai said as he ate. "Even so, I won't go to Tensei Prefecture," Chu Hen said firmly. "You think Tensei Prefecture is bad?" Let me tell you, you weren't even born when Tensei Prefecture was at its peak. So what?" Chu Hen knew a thing or two about Tensei Prefecture. Originally, there were 6 famous high-ranked martial schools in the capital city. They were Huangwu, Bright Moon, Mammoth, Imperial Wind, Lingxi, and Heavenly Star. Back then, Heavenly Star was ranked first, the best of the 6 academies. The only one that could compare was Huangwu. But later, for some unknown reason, Tensei Prefecture declined and was jointly suppressed by the other 5 academies. As a result, Heavenly Star became worse and worse. The 6 academies excluded it, and it became worse and worse than ordinary martial schools. Now, Heavenly Star had become the worst high-ranked martial school in the capital city. Even if it was a mediocre talent or the most ordinary of new disciples, they would rather wait until next year than go to the Heavenly Star Martial House. No matter what, Chu Hen was still young and full of mettle. Why would he go to a martial school that was at the bottom? Therefore, Chu Hen did not need to consider Song Chunglie's suggestion at all. Tensei Prefecture is not what you think it is. Song Qinglai finished the noodles in his bowl. His tone of voice and steady gaze revealed a sense of seriousness. But not many people are willing to go to Heavenly Star, Chu Hen replied. No one is willing to go. Not because Heavenly Star is bad, but because Tensei Prefecture's assessment standards have never changed. What was in the past is what is now. Indeed, Tensei Prefecture cannot recruit outstanding students now, but we have never given up on Heavenly Star. I hope you will consider it carefully. After saying this, Song Qinglai took out a letter from his pocket and moved it to the table in front of Chu Hen. Then, he paid for the Yangchun noodles and turned to leave. He watched Song Qinglie's back disappear into the crowd, then looked at the letter on the table. Chu Hen hesitated for a moment, but still picked up the letter. It was a recommendation letter, and the general content was to recommend Chu Hen to become a student in Tensei Prefecture. Chu Hen could not help but fall into deep thought. He had almost been rejected by all the advanced colleges in the imperial capital, but the worst one, Tensei Prefecture, had come looking for him. Speaking of which, this was really funny. How should he choose? Chu Hen seemed to have reached a fork in the road. He knew that no matter how hard he tried, the remaining colleges would not want him. In the end, there were only two choices left. One was to return to Burning Rain City, and the other was to enter Tensei Prefecture. Going back was definitely out of the question. Moreover, the mastermind behind the scenes had already started to take action. What happened last night would probably happen to him again in the next few days. Chu Hen could not guarantee that he would not be as lucky as last night. The only way to save his life was to seek protection from a certain advanced martial house. In that case, Tensei Prefecture was his only choice. Phew! Chu Hen let out a long sigh and mumbled to himself. No matter what, getting through the current crisis is the most important thing now. As for what to choose in the future, I can only take it one step at a time. Chapter 31. South of the Imperial City. After some thought, Chu Hen finally found this place according to the coordinates on the map. Compared to the other higher academies, the main entrance of the Heavenly Star Martial House could be described as deserted. At a glance, there were only a few scattered groups of people at the entrance that could be considered dignified and tidy. A few young men and women stood at the entrance and hesitated for a while before shaking their heads and leaving. Thinking back to the time when it was the leader of the 6 major martial houses, it was now in such dire straits. It was really unbelievable. Chu Hen walked forward. At the same time, 2 or 3 young men walked out angrily, cursing something. Damn Tensei Prefecture. It's already like this, but the assessment is still so difficult. Damn it, does it still think it's one of the 6 major colleges? That's right, I really don't understand why Minter Shilon would stay in a place like this. She even refused to accept me. Curse this rubbish place to be at the bottom every year, never to rise again. A few of them kept cursing as they walked past Chu Hen. Chu Hen couldn't help but stop in his tracks. Was this Tensei Prefecture so pathetic? Forget it, I don't have a choice now. Chu Hen relaxed and walked up the steps to the entrance. The guard at the door came up and asked warmly, "Are you here to participate in the examination?" Someone called Song Qinglai gave me a letter of recommendation. He told me to come here. So you're recommended by Qinglai. Please follow me. Chu Hen nodded and followed the guard into the martial house. The Tensei Prefecture was very large. It was vast and had a lot of buildings. The Qiangyuan Pavilion was tall and majestic, vaguely showing the glory of the past. With the guard leading the way, Chu Hen came to a wide square. It seemed like something had just ended. The crowd that had gathered here was dispersing in all directions. Mr. Wu Hao. This is a student who just came to report. He was recommended by the city's hunter mentor. The guard walked in front of a middle-aged man in his early 30s and said, the man called Wu Hao had a kind face and regular features. His eyes lit up when he heard that Song Chung-lai had recommended him. Oh, he's here? I'm Chu Hen. Greetings, Instructor Wu Hao. Chu Hen said politely. Wu Hao nodded with satisfaction, and there was a hint of joy between his brows. The city hunter has already told me about you. I'm very happy that you can come to our Tensei prefecture. Chu Hen smiled and didn't say anything. I'll assign you a place to stay first. I'll help you with the admission procedures later, Wu Hao said. Thank you, Mentor Wu Hao. You're welcome. Feel free to look for me if you need anything. The Tensei prefecture is like your home. Hearing the last sentence of the other party, Chu Hen's heartstrings faintly trembled. It was as if this was the first time in a month that he felt a faint warm aura. After a brief conversation, Wu Hao asked an older student to lead Chu Hen to his residence. Junior brother Chu Hen, you can stay here from now on. A moment later, the older student led Chu Hen to the entrance of a courtyard. The courtyard's door was slightly open. At a glance, there were about 4 or 5 rooms inside. Originally, a courtyard can accommodate 4 or 5 people. However, because there aren't many new students in our Tensei prefecture in recent years, there are quite a few empty rooms. There are 2 people living in this courtyard. The other person is also a new student. He's probably out by now. Thank you, senior brother Gu Qing. Chu Hen nodded and said, 2 people living in a courtyard was one of the benefits of having fewer people. At least when cultivating, there could be a relatively quiet environment. Gu Qing waved his hand and continued. As for the rooms, you can choose any of the remaining ones. It might be a little dusty, so you'll need to clean it yourself. I'll send you some daily necessities later. Thank you, senior brother, Chu Hen said gratefully. It's no trouble at all. After giving some instructions, Gu Qing left for the time being. Chu Hen entered the courtyard and chose an empty room on the north side. There were only simple decorations in the room. Bed, table, chairs, cupboards. However, the room was spacious and bright. There was a thin layer of dust on the floor. Immediately, Chu Hen began to do some simple cleaning and tidying of the room. After a while, a series of light footsteps came from afar. Chu Hen thought that Gu Qing had returned, but he quickly rejected this idea. Fairies in the sky, beauties on the ground, one on my left hand, one on my right hand, one on my thigh. Green grass by the river. Mu Feng come to pick flowers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. After picking mine along with a mouth full of crooked poems, a strange young man suddenly walked in from the door. Buddha, oh Buddha, who is the most handsome man in the world? Of course it's... Before he finished speaking, the young man was stunned. He looked at Chu Hen in front of him with a surprised expression. To be honest, Chu Hen was also stunned. He saw that the other party's clothes were untidy, and he had a green foxtail in his mouth. There was even a small flower in his hair. Coupled with the crooked poem that the other party had just recited, Chu Hen was a little unsettled. Where did this madman come from? After the young man recovered from his shock, he grinned and walked in front of Chu Hen. You live here too? Fate. My name is Mu Feng. You can call me Mu Xiao Feng, or Xiao Feng Feng, or even Shui Feng. What about you? What's your name? The corner of Chu Hen's eyes twitched, and 2 words suddenly appeared in his heart. Weirdo. How could I live in the same courtyard with such a person? And Xiao Feng Feng? Just how much love does this guy lack? Chu Hen ignored the other party and turned around to continue cleaning the dust in the room. Mu Feng was particularly enthusiastic. I say, brother, are you embarrassed by my handsomeness? It's okay. You don't have to feel inferior. You don't know, a person as handsome as me is the center of attention wherever I go. I've always been enduring the charm that my age shouldn't have. Can you shut up? Chu Hen couldn't stand the other party's long-winded words. Don't be like this when we first meet. Getting to know each other is fate. Fate brings us together. Chu Hen coldly looked at the other party. If you don't shut up, I'll disfigure you right now, so that you won't be able to sleep because of your handsomeness. Mu Feng immediately shut his mouth and grinned foolishly. He stood at the side without saying a word. Chu Hen secretly shook his head. Sure enough, when the forest is big, there are all kinds of birds. How could there be such a weirdo in this world? Very quickly, Chu Hen cleaned the room, and the spacious room looked brand new. Chu Hen glanced at Mu Feng outside the door and lightly said, "What are you still standing here for?" Hee. Mu Feng once again came up and tried to get close to him. "No matter what, there are only the two of us living here. In the future, we should take care of each other. How about I share my 36 strategies to pick up a girl with you?" "Not interested." "Then what are you interested in?" "I, Mu Feng, know astronomy and geography. I know 500 years in the past and 500 years in the future. I like to pick up girls. I have a wide range of interests. People call me the little white dragon of the waves." Chu Hen felt a headache coming. He helplessly sighed and said, "Do you think the left side of your face is better or the right side is better? Or both sides are better?" "This. Hee. I still have something to do." "Brother, you go ahead. I'll come see you later." Feeling the coldness from Chu Hen's body, Mu Feng finally didn't dare to stay here any longer. He turned around and left the room. Chu Hen didn't know whether to be angry or to laugh. His future days would probably not be as peaceful as he imagined. "Junior brother Chu Hen." After a while, Gu Qing's voice came from outside. Chu Hen stood up and went out. "Senior brother Gu Qing, I'm here." Gu Qing smiled. He carried a pile of ordinary daily necessities and walked in front of Chu Hen. "Senior brother, please come in." "Okay." Gu Qing placed all the things on the table before withdrawing a badge and a manual. "Junior brother Chu Hen, these are my academy's badge and new disciple manual. Put them away." Chu Hen received the two things. The badge was a 5-pointed star ornament made of copper, and it could be worn on the chest of one's clothes. "Junior brother Chu Hen, from today onwards, you're a member of my academy. Under normal circumstances in Tensei Prefecture, you can apply to leave the academy after 4 years. If your star points have attained 30,000 points, you can apply to leave in advance as well." Gu Qing spoke. "Star points?" Chu Hen was a little surprised, and a questioning look appeared on his face. "Simply speaking, star points are the results of our Tensei Prefecture students, and there are various methods to obtain star points. For example, attaining the standards set by the instructors within the specified time, or achieving a certain number of successive victories in the martial arena, or completing the assignments the martial house sends down, and so on and so forth. All of these can be obtained. I have to obtain 30,000 star points to be able to leave in advance. Yes, when your star points attain 10,000 points, then you can exchange for a silver badge." Gu Qing pointed at the copper 5-pointed star badge in Chu Hen's hand as he spoke. "When your accumulated star points exceed 20,000 points, then you can exchange for a gold badge. When your accumulated star points attain 30,000 points, then you can exchange for a black badge, and at the same time, you will possess the conditions to leave the academy. Of course, you can also choose to continue staying in the martial house and leave after 4 years." When he heard up to here, Chu Hen instinctively glanced at the badge on Gu Qing's chest, and it was made of copper and dark gold as well. Gu Qing rubbed his nose in slight embarrassment. "I only have a little over 9,000 star points now, and I'll be able to accumulate 10,000 points once I complete the assignment to receive new students this time. At that time, I can exchange for a silver badge. You can obtain star points from receiving new students as well." "Huh. Yes, but the rewards for star points are comparatively lesser. The other high-ranked academies have more or less the same rules, and the only difference is that the academy's badges are beautiful. Usually, junior brother, try your best to carry the badge on you." "All right, I understand." Chu Hen nodded in agreement. Gu Qing smiled as well. "At any rate, the academy's written rules are clearly written in the handbook. You'll understand after reading it yourself later. If there's anything you don't understand, you can come look for me. Besides that, there's one last thing that's more important. The new students will be choosing bishop instructors at the 7-star square tomorrow morning, so don't be late." Choosing a bishop instructor? As the name implied, a bishop instructor could be called a main martial instructor, and it was equivalent to the direct responsibility of a master towards his personal disciple. Truthfully speaking, Chu Hen didn't have any special expectations towards the instructors in Tensei Prefecture. After all, this was the worst high-ranked martial house in the imperial capital, so how good could the teaching quality of the instructors be? But when he saw Gu Qing's serious expression, Chu Hen still nodded. Chapter 32. After sending Gu Qing off, Chu Hen looked at the things on the table again, and a faint sense of security arose in his heart. After a few twists and turns, the result was truly unexpected. He originally thought that he would be able to enter Tifeng Province, but in the end, he was able to enter Tensei Prefecture, which was at the bottom. If Long Zhan were to find out about this, he would probably be unable to avoid a wave of worry. Forget it. Since I'm already here, I'll just take things as they come. Regardless of whether the martial house is good or bad, my own strength is the way of the king. Chu Hen's eyes faintly surged with a sense of resolution and unswerving determination. Immediately, Chu Hen sat down beside the table and casually flipped through the student handbook in front of him. The handbook contained various aspects of Tensei Prefecture, and after flipping through it, Chu Hen discovered that the star points wasn't as simple as just evaluating the results of the new students. The most important function was to obtain the resources provided by the martial house. For example, when the number of star points accumulated reached 2,000, one could obtain 3 mid-grade origin crystal stones from the martial house every month. When the number of star points accumulated reached 3,000, one could cultivate natal opening stage martial skills and cultivation methods. The further one progressed, the more precious the resources provided by the martial house would be. If one accumulated more than 10,000 star points, not only would one be able to cultivate better martial skills and cultivation methods, one could also obtain precious medicinal pills that would allow one's cultivation to advance in a short period of time. Chu Hen nodded to himself. It seemed that this was the charm of a high-level martial house. After roughly reading through the contents of the handbook, Chu Hen stretched his slightly sore muscles and bones. After that, he ate some of the dry rations he brought with him, then turned over and went to bed to rest. He didn't sleep last night, and after a bloody battle, he was slightly tired. After a short while, Chu Hen fell asleep. In a luxuriously decorated attic, a young man with a confident and elegant temperament sat sideways on a wide chair, his left hand lightly stroking his chin as he muttered to himself. 1 natal opening stage, 2 channel opening stage, 9th stage, a total of 20 people, but none of them were able to kill that little bastard. This is truly strange. It's this subordinate's fault. Please punish me, young master. A heavy thunder-like voice was emitted from the mouth of the middle-aged man below the hall. His body was bowed, and his face was also somewhat perplexed. Wei Han, exactly how powerful is that little bastard? The young man asked. The middle-aged man thought for a moment and said, according to this month's observation, he is at most at the 9th level of the channel opening realm. A channel opening realm rank 9 can kill so many people. This subordinate suspects that someone is secretly helping him. That's possible, but Long Xingyang has already gone to the Tianqi Mountains, and Long Xuanshuang is said to be in seclusion. Who could be helping him? Young master, please give me some time. This subordinate will investigate as soon as possible. There's no need for that. He's in Tensei Prefecture now. Let him go for now. Although Tensei Prefecture was declining year by year, the existence of those old fellows could not be ignored. In any case, I've already achieved my goal. That woman, Yu, should be very satisfied with that person's situation. Isn't that good? The man laughed coldly, a cold gleam flashing between his brows. By the time Chu Hen woke up, it was already evening. Who's outside? Chu Hen frowned, feeling alarmed. It's me, the kind and handsome Xiao Fengfeng. Mu Feng's crazy voice came from the door. I saw that you haven't come out for a day, so I brought a few steamed buns and some cooked beef for you. Chu Hen could not help but be taken aback, his face full of astonishment. I left him at the door for you. As he spoke, the footsteps outside the door gradually faded away, and finally, the sound of the door opening and closing could be heard. Chu Hen got up and opened the door, only to see 2 paper bags on the floor. One contained 2 steamed buns, while the other contained some beef. Seeing this, the vigilance in Chu Hen's heart gradually subsided. After a short moment of hesitation, he accepted the other person's kindness. In a quiet night, as usual, Chu Hen was immersed in a state of cultivation. All 9 martial veins were opened, and the active true origin force unimpeded, completing one cycle after another in each of the major meridians. At this moment, Chu Hen was cultivating the nine-soul dragon seal, the strongest martial technique of the general's mansion that Long Zhan gave him 2 months ago in Flaming Rain City. This nine-soul dragon seal was a core transformation stage martial technique, and with Chu Hen's cultivation base at channel opening stage 9, he could not even use the first dragon seal. However, if he were to cultivate now, it would not be overlooked, and it could speed up the improvement of his strength. Therefore, on the path of martial arts, the strengths and weaknesses of martial techniques are extremely important and cannot be left out. Buzz, buzz. Suddenly, the energy in Chu Hen's body became extremely chaotic. After a slight tremble, the true origin force that permeated his body dissipated. Chu Hen opened his eyes and murmured softly, "As expected, it won't work. It seems that in order to condense the first dragon seal, I must reach the elemental opening stage." Just now, Chu Hen tried to condense the first dragon seal. The result was obvious. Due to the lack of true origin force, he failed. Sometimes the gap in cultivation base was really not that easy to make up for. Wait! Suddenly, Chu Hen's mind lit up, and a strange idea appeared in his mind. He immediately calmed his mind, threw away all distracting thoughts, and entered a state of cultivation. The true origin force circulated in his body at a constant speed. Buzz! With a thought, Chu Hen immediately communicated with the bloodline boundary power of the chaotic body. In a hazy, chaotic world, the sky was dark and the stars were moving. In a vast and boundless sky, a huge shadow tens of thousands of meters tall stood in the middle of the river of stars. That shocking, monstrous aura was like that of an unparalleled demon, causing people to feel fear. This time, Chu Hen communicated with the chaotic body alone, so the bloodline boundary power of the sacred demonic eye body did not appear. Under Chu Hen's control, the power of the chaotic body was constantly released, and it blended with the true origin force. In the next moment, the energy in Chu Hen's body became especially restless and violent. The surging energy quickly flowed through the 8 extraordinary meridians of his body. Buzz, buzz. In the room, layers of black air swirled around Chu Hen's body, and the illusory air swirl seemed like a demonic dance. The air was chaotic, and the bed, table, chairs, cupboards, even the walls were faintly trembling. Chu Hen's handsome eyebrows were tightly knitted, and the veins on his forehead and neck were bulging. The energy in his body was as violent as lava. Chu Hen clenched his teeth, and as he controlled the restless energy in his body, he performed various complicated hand seals with his hands. Boom! Suddenly, Chu Hen put his palms together and then slowly separated. A surging ball of golden true origin force surged wantonly in his palms, and there were strands of black luster in it. A powerful aura was constantly released from Chu Hen's body. Nine-soul dragon seal. Following Chu Hen's quiet cry, his tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. An incomparably turbulent aura erupted from the true yuan in his palms. Roar. Chapter 33. Roar. The deep roar of the dragon was unusually loud in the silent night. It carried a kind of power that could make one's mind tremble. Looking at the illusory dragon figure that was agilely swimming around in his palm, a deep joy instantly surged onto Chu Hen's face. Success. He really succeeded. Although it was only an exquisite dragon that was less than 20 centimeters long, Chu Hen could clearly feel that it was filled with an extremely strong, explosive power. Chu Hen was both surprised and happy. His eyes were filled with satisfaction. Then, with a thought, he withdrew his true yuan. With a wong sound, the dragon in his palm hid itself and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The minimum requirement to use the nine-soul dragon seal was to be at the natal opening realm. However, Chu Hen had unexpectedly broken this threshold. If this matter was known by Long Zhan, he would probably be shocked. Of course, in reality, Chu Hen was only trying it out. He used the power of the chaotic body as a guide, and merged it with his true yuan to complete this test. He did not expect to obtain such a pleasant surprise. What kind of bloodline limit does the chaotic body have? It actually has such a shocking power. Chu Hen was secretly amazed. His eyes flashed with a bit of passion. The sacred demonic pupil body could also complete the amplification of martial skills and cultivation methods. However, it was under the premise that the martial skill was used. Only when the martial skill was successfully used, the power of the demonic pupil body could increase the lethality of the martial skill by several times. Under normal circumstances, Chu Hen could not use the Nine-Soul Dragon Seal. However, the chaotic body helped Chu Hen to make up for this flaw. However, Chu Hen also knew that if the gap was too big, it would be difficult to overcome it. For the current him, martial skills and cultivation methods of the core transformation realm were already the highest limit he could reach. In essence, the gap between realms could not be made up with the bloodline limit. The only way was to make himself stronger and make his cultivation higher. It's still the same. No matter how strong the sacred body is, it still needs the support of one's own cultivation. If you're not strong enough, a martial body can also kill a saint body. At this moment, Chu Hen did not forget to remind himself not to get carried away by this small achievement. There was still a long way to go. However, Chu Hen also firmly believed that one day he would be able to exert the amazing power of the holy body of the demonic eye and unveil the veil of the chaotic body. After cultivating for an entire night, when Chu Hen opened his eyes, the sky was already bright. Even though he didn't sleep for the whole night, Chu Hen was still full of energy. He was in high spirits, and his whole body seemed to have inexhaustible strength. Sometimes cultivating could replace sleeping. However, relatively speaking, cultivation was more boring and boring. According to what Senior Brother Guqing had said yesterday, the new students had to head to the 7-Star Plaza this morning to choose their bishop mentor. Although he was not particularly looking forward to it, Chu Hen still got up and changed into a new set of clothes. Creak! The door opened, and the fresh morning air blew in. Good morning. Brother, did you sleep well last night? A burst of hearty laughter followed, but this voice sounded a bit wretched. Needless to say, the other party was naturally that extremely narcissistic and weird Mu Feng. Mu Feng's attire today was relatively tidy, and looked much more pleasing to the eye than yesterday. Very good. Chu Hen replied carelessly, and left on his own. Mu Feng directly chased after him. Brother, you still haven't told me your name? From now on, we'll be living under the same roof, and we'll take care of each other. Am I right? If you can speak less, there's still room for discussion. I understand. I won't say any more. All right. Mu Feng really became honest. Chu Hen secretly shook his head, thinking that this guy was most likely mute in his previous life. However, because of what happened last night, Chu Hen's attitude was not so repulsive. This person was a bit long-winded, but his heart was not bad. The environment in Tensei Prefecture was very good. There were gardens, lawns, pavilions, plazas. All kinds of buildings were arranged in a picturesque manner, and, at a glance, it made people feel relaxed and happy. After a while, Chu Hen and Mu Feng arrived at the Big Dipper Square. This was a very spacious field, with a high center and low sides, and it was connected by steps. On the highest stage, in the middle, there were 7 white stone pillars, about 50 meters tall, arranged in the direction of the Big Dipper. The 7 stone pillars stood there, giving off a magnificent feeling of power. At this moment, there were already 600 to 700 people gathered in the Big Dipper Square, scattered around the square. Everyone was chatting loudly with each other. Which bishop mentor are you going to choose later? Do you still need to ask? Of course, it's Mentor Shilon. I also choose Shilon. I came to Tensei Prefecture for Mentor Shilon. I choose Mentor Shadowless. Same, I choose Shadowless. Listening to the discussion around him, Chu Hen mumbled to himself. This year, Tensei Prefecture only recruited these few people. This is already not bad. Mu Feng, who was beside him, finally found a chance to speak. He continued, Tensei Prefecture is the only prefecture in the entire capital that has less than 10,000 students. For example, those martial academies like Imperial Wind, Giant Elephant, and Bright Moon have tens of thousands of students. Is that so? Chu Hen replied calmly. If it wasn't for Mentor Shilon, I'm afraid Tensei Prefecture wouldn't have recruited many people this year. It's not an exaggeration to say that among the new students every year, more than 80% of them come from Mentor Shilon, and some come from Mentor Shadowless and Hunter Mentor Song Chung. Hunter Song Chung. Chu Hen was slightly surprised. Yes. Mu Feng nodded. But Hunter Song Chung won't be teaching the new students this year. I heard that he's been promoted to the academy's elder. The atmosphere in the square was quickly livened up. The people who were most mentioned were Shilon, Shadowless, Hunter Song, and a name called by Yue. It seemed that there were few more famous people in Tensei Prefecture. A bunch of good-for-nothings. How dare they say that they're going to choose Mentor Shilon as the bishop? Suddenly, a burst of ridiculing laughter resounded from the square. Everyone's expression changed. The crowd made way for a young man in a luxurious robe, surrounded by a few people, walked to the front. As soon as they saw this person, the surrounding people shut their mouths obediently. Many of them more or less had a hint of fear in their eyes. That person's name is Lin Tao. He's this year's top newcomer. He's very cocky all day. Mu Feng whispered to Chu Hen. This person actually has the strength of a channel opening stage level 9. From the aura that the other party deliberately revealed, he could roughly determine that he had opened 9 martial meridians. Among this year's new students, he could definitely be called a top-notch genius. Chu Hen was quite surprised. Logically speaking, such a genius would definitely be accepted by the top 5 martial academies. Why is he in Tensei Prefecture? Is there a need to say? Of course, it's from Mentor Shilon. Mentor Shilon again? Chu Hen was even more surprised. What kind of charm did Mentor Shilon have? She actually made people joke about their future. However, seeing Chu Hen's expression, Mu Feng looked at him strangely. Don't tell me you don't know Mentor Shilon. Is there a problem? You win. There's actually someone in the Imperial City who doesn't know Shilon. Mu Feng's small eyes looked at Chu Hen with disdain, and then said rather seriously, Shilon became a mentor in Tensei Prefecture at the age of 19. This year is the 4th year. Although she's only 23, none of the students she teaches are inferior to the students of the 5 academies. Moreover, half of the students under her have already obtained black emblems. Even the students who became her students last year all obtained gold emblems. Gold emblems accumulated 20,000 star points. Black emblems accumulated 30,000 star points, and the qualification to leave the academy early. What made Chu Hen even more surprised was the other party's age. 23 years old. Wasn't this a bit too young? It said that Imperial Martial Academy invited Mentor Shilon to join their team of mentors 3 times. Moreover, the conditions they offered were higher and higher. However, all of them were rejected by Mentor Shilon. Amazing, right? Chu Hen nodded, a bit of admiration surging in his heart. Of course, this isn't the most important point. Mu Feng suddenly revealed an infatuated look, his face full of infatuation. The most important thing is that Mentor Shilon is one of the Imperial Cities for beauties. Imperial Cities for beauties? Chu Hen was somewhat astonished. It wasn't hard to understand. The Imperial City's 4 beauties were the 4 most beautiful women in the Imperial City. Seeing Mu Feng's infatuated look, Chu Hen couldn't help but find it somewhat funny. So you're saying that you came to Tensei Prefecture for that, Mentor Shilon? Hee. Mu Feng raised his eyebrows and grinned. Not entirely. Oh, other than the Imperial City's 4 beauties, Mentor Shilon, there's also one of the 6 pearls by Yue. She's also my, little Feng Feng's ultimate goal. Imperial City's 4 beauties, 6 pearls. These were the Imperial City's publicly acknowledged top 10 beauties. Bai Yue, this name, Chu Hen had heard a few times from the surrounding crowd. Bai Yue wasn't a mentor in Tensei Prefecture, but an extremely talented genius student. Moreover, Bai Yue's bishop mentor was Shadowless. Many new students also came for her. As for why someone with such good qualifications like Bai Yue was also in the bottom Tensei Prefecture, that was unknown. My little Feng Feng's ultimate goal is to get all the imperial cities, 4 beauties, and 6 pearls. I'll make all the men in the world jealous. Wow, just thinking about it makes me excited. This is the peak of life. At the side, Chu Hen's forehead was full of black lines. This guy was simply hopeless. The mentors are here. Just then, an excited voice was heard. Chapter 34. The mentors are here. A voice filled with excitement and anticipation reverberated throughout the 7-star square. Everyone's gaze swept towards the center of the square in unison. Soon after, more than 30 mentors walked over from afar. Behind them were many senior students who came to watch the show. The atmosphere became a little noisy. Pairs of eyes were searching for something. Where's Mentor Shilon? Is she here? I didn't see her. She's not here. I knew Mentor Shilon wouldn't come. I heard it was the same last year. Where's Mentor Shadowless? Who's Mentor Shadowless? Mentor Shadowless doesn't seem to be here either. All right, maybe Mentor Shadowless is drunk somewhere. I heard that he's always like this. The 2 most famous mentors in Tensei Prefecture did not appear. This made the new students, who were excited just a second ago, sign disappointment. The senior students who were watching the show all had strange smiles on their faces. Most of them were like these new students. They came to Tensei Prefecture with the same goal. However, they would soon understand that the worst was yet to come. Soon, more than 30 Tensei Prefecture mentors stood on the highest platform in the center of the square. Chu Hen found Song Chenglie's figure among them, and it seemed like he was the leader of the group. Similarly, Song Chenglai saw Chu Hen in the crowd. Their eyes met, and a gentle smile appeared on Song Chenglie's face. Oh yeah, why did you come to Tensei Prefecture? Mu Feng suddenly asked. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. He said calmly, none of the advanced martial houses in the capital wanted me, so I came here. No way. None of the martial houses wanted you. Mu Feng was in disbelief. That's right. What a talent. Mu Feng patted Chu Hen's shoulder and shook his head to comfort him. Brother, I didn't expect your experience to be so tragic. Don't be sad. Mu Feng, will take care of you in the future. Chu Hen's forehead was full of black lines. He said angrily, you are the real talent. Please stay away from me, okay? Understood. Mu Feng hurriedly withdrew his arm from Chu Hen's shoulder and stepped to the side with a standard horizontal stride. Song Chenglai stepped forward when the atmosphere was more or less settled. I'm Song Chenglai. First of all, I'd like to sincerely welcome all of you to Tensei Prefecture. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, the audience burst into cheers and applause. Hunter Master Chung, can you be my mentor? Yeah, Hunter Chung, the reason why I came to Tensei Prefecture is because of you. Everyone, please be quiet. Song Chenglai waved his hand and smiled apologetically. I'm really sorry, everyone. Due to personal reasons, I will no longer be the bishop mentor for the new students from this year onwards. However, I ask everyone to believe in us. Every teacher in the Heavenly Star Martial House will do their best to nurture you. Next, we will start selecting the bishop mentor. As soon as he finished speaking, a few young men and women with extraordinary auras walked out from the other side of the square. The leader was a young man about 18 or 19 years old. He was dressed in blue, had a slender body, and a cold face. He exuded a heroic spirit. Wow, it's senior brother, Qing Yuan. He's so handsome. A girl's voice came from the crowd. Senior brother Qing Yuan is one of Mentor Shilan's students. I heard that he has reached the 9th stage of the element opening stage. He's only 1 step away from the core transformation stage. That's amazing. As he listened to the discussions around him, Chu Hen could not help but size up Qing Yuan. He saw that Qing Yuan was wearing a golden 5-pointed star badge on his shirt. This meant that Qing Yuan had accumulated more than 20,000 stars. Chu Hen nodded to himself. There were some talented geniuses in Tensei Prefecture. Is he very handsome? Mu Feng asked from the side. Not as handsome as you. Chu Hen replied nonchalantly. I like people who tell the truth. From the moment you said that, Shui Feng, decided that I'm definitely going to be your brother. He Ching Yuan and the others walked to the front of the high platform. Song Qinglai nodded slightly as a sign of acknowledgement. I'm He Ching Yuan. Today, I'll be choosing Mentor Shi Lan's new disciple. What? He Ching Yuan will be choosing? Everyone's eyes lit up, and they looked at each other expectantly. He Ching Yuan's expression was cold as he scanned the crowd in front of him calmly. Those who want to be Mentor Shi Lan's disciple, please stand to the left. As soon as he finished speaking, a large number of people rushed toward the left side of the square. They were all in a hurry, afraid that they would miss out on something if they could not get a spot. Let's go, Mu Feng said. Chu Hen thought for a while, then nodded his head. Truthfully speaking, after hearing Mu Feng say so much, in addition to everyone's current expressions, Chu Hen's heart was already somewhat curious. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of new students were standing together. Only a few people remained in the same place, and they were all girls. On the high platform, Song Qinglai and the other mentors could not help but shake their heads and smile bitterly. They were already used to this kind of scene. Before that, I need to remind all of you, He Ching Yuan said coldly, there are only 3 places. In other words, only 3 of you will be able to become Teacher Shi Lan students. Boom! As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar. 3 spots? What the heck? F***, this is a scam. He's definitely going to choose the 3 strongest people. There's no chance. Many people began to curse in their hearts. This year's number 1 newcomer, Lin Tao, crossed his arms in front of him. He had a disdainful smile on his face, and he looked very confident. A bunch of useless things. It's just a waste of time. In the face of Lin Tao's sarcasm, the people around him did not dare to say anything. Lin Tao's strength was there for all to see. It was obvious that he would definitely be one of the 3 spots. If there are no more questions, let's do a simple test. As He Ching Yuan spoke, a delicate young girl beside him walked forward and took out a box of go. However, the go pieces were all white. Everyone come forward and take a piece, He Ching Yuan said. Everyone immediately began to line up. One by one, they went forward and grabbed a white piece from the box. On the high platform, Song Qinglai and the other mentors watched quietly from the side. They did not show any anxiety or dissatisfaction. Even if they spent the entire day on this, no one would have any objections. In everyone's eyes, Shilan was the core mentor of Tensei Prefecture. Soon, everyone had a white chess piece in their hands. Chu Hen was secretly bewildered in his heart. This white chess piece did not seem to be an ordinary chess piece. He could faintly feel strands of weak energy coming from it. What the hell is this guy doing? Mu Feng grabbed the chess piece and looked left and right, his face full of confusion. Everyone has a piece, He Ching Yuan said indifferently. Next, put in the palm of your right hand. Put it in the palm of your right hand. Everyone did as he said. Clench your right hand tightly and start to mobilize your primordial qi. Everyone followed suit and completed the next step. In less than 5 seconds, He Ching Yuan suddenly shouted in a deep voice, "Stop! Stop!" At the same time, a faint cracking sound could be heard. That's enough, He Ching Yuan said. Everyone looked at each other. Was this the end of the test? He Ching Yuan's gaze swept across the people in front of him calmly and said, "Those whose pieces are undamaged can be eliminated." In the next moment, the entire audience sighed. Immediately, group after group of people walked to the other side dejectedly. In the blink of an eye, there were only about 20 people left. Chu Hen and Mu Feng were among them. Seeing this scene, Chu Hen was extremely astonished. This kind of filtering method was really special enough. But there were still more than 20 people. How should they choose? He Ching Yuan nodded slightly and walked steadily toward the remaining 20 people. "Open your hand." He Ching Yuan took the lead and said to a handsome and kind-looking young man. The young man opened his palm and saw that the white chess piece was not broken. Instead, there were cracks on it. The cracks were in a straight line and were very regular. He Ching Yuan was expressionless and walked silently to another person next to him. The other person understood and showed the chess piece in his hand to him. After checking more than 10 people in a row, He Ching Yuan did not show the slightest change in emotion. Everyone could not help but feel uncertain. What kind of person would be considered qualified? It's Lin Tao's turn. With a trace of restlessness in the crowd, He Qingyuan came in front of Lin Tao. As this year's rookie king of Tensei Prefecture, Lin Tao would always be the center of attention no matter when. Lin Tao held his head high, and his face was full of confidence and pride. However, Lin Tao tilted his right hand at a 90-degree angle and loosened his clenched fist. Then, a fine white powder sprinkled from his hand. This is? Everyone couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene. Lin Tao had actually crushed the chess piece. Exactly what kind of hand strength was needed to achieve such an extent? Lin Tao is really amazing. If this guy is not selected, it will be intolerable. Chapter 35. Lin Tao is really something. He actually crushed the chess piece. If this guy isn't chosen, it would be unforgivable. Looking at the white powder that slid out of Lin Tao's palm, not only were the new students shocked, but even the old students who were watching from the sidelines were shocked. Among the instructors, other than Song Qinglai, all the other instructors nodded to themselves with approval on their faces. Listening to the discussions and exclamations around him, Lin Tao's expression became even more smug. He looked at He Qingyuan in front of him with anticipation. However, He Qingyuan's expression was still the same as before, calm and without any emotional fluctuations. He didn't say another word and continued to walk to the next student. Everyone was even more confused, wondering if He Qingyuan had facial paralysis. He was expressionless from the beginning to the end. Of course, even so, no one doubted his ability. Not long after, He Qingyuan arrived in front of Chu Hen and Mu Feng. Look at mine first. Mu Feng stretched out his hand with a face full of anticipation. Before he could open his hand, He Qingyuan said coldly, "There's no need to look. You could be eliminated." F***CKY. Mu Feng almost jumped up when he heard this. How can you be like this? You can't treat me unfairly just because I'm more handsome than you. The eyes of the surrounding crowd twitched involuntarily. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? It has nothing to do with your looks, He Qingyuan replied calmly. Then why? If you don't give me a convincing reason, I'll go to your doorstep. You can't distinguish left and right. I told you to put the chess piece in the palm of your right hand. Look at which hand it is. Which hand? Countless pairs of eyes looked in the same direction. They saw that Mu Feng had extended his left hand in front of He Qingyuan, but his right hand was open and empty. Obviously, the chess piece was in Mu Feng's left hand. Mu Feng was stunned. Then he muttered unhappily, "Can't I be left-handed?" Ha! Everyone burst into laughter. Even the instructors on the stage were amused. This year, they actually managed to recruit such a clown-level character. Chu Hen also felt helpless. He didn't expect that the guy beside him couldn't even tell left from right. He Qingyuan shook his head and ignored Mu Feng. He turned to look at Chu Hen. Chu Hen understood and immediately spread out his right hand. The white chess piece did not shatter. With the chess piece as the center, fine cracks appeared in all directions. These fine lines were arranged in a regular pattern, looking like a circle of ripples on the surface of the water. The surprise in He Qingyuan's eyes was fleeting. Just like before, he didn't say anything and turned to the next person. Sigh. Mu Feng sighed helplessly and patted Chu Hen on the shoulder. "Brother, don't be discouraged. Even someone as handsome as me has been eliminated. Don't be too sad." Soon, He Qingyuan finished checking. Everyone's hearts were in their throats, and their faces were filled with nervousness. It's done. The test is over. Next, I'll announce the 3 people who can become instructor Shilan students. He Qingyuan said as he walked forward. Under everyone's expectant and surprised gazes, He Qingyuan pointed at a good-looking and good-natured young man. "You've passed." The young man was pleasantly surprised, and a shy smile appeared on his face. "You passed too." The second person He Qingyuan pointed at was a young girl in a long red dress. The young girl was rather beautiful and had a delicate figure. Her big eyes were filled with joy. There was one more spot left. Everyone's attention involuntarily fell on Lin Tao. Lin Tao crossed his arms in front of him, a proud smile on his face. "You've passed." The moment He Qingyuan's voice fell, Everyone was dumbfounded. Lin Tao's smile froze on his face. Song Chunglia's eyes lit up on the stage. The last person He Qingyuan pointed at was none other than Chu Hen, who was standing beside Mu Feng. It's him. How could it be him? Lin Tao is the strongest newcomer this year. That's right. There's no reason for him not to be chosen. Everyone had all kinds of doubts. Mu Feng's face was full of surprise, and he looked like he was wondering if there was a mistake. On the contrary, Chu Hen appeared to be calmer. He had already guessed the purpose of this simple test. I have an opinion. Lin Tao was extremely angry, and he asked sternly with a gloomy face, "How am I not qualified? I, Lin Tao, have opened up 9 martial meridians and have the bloodline limit of the raging bull martial body. And in the future, my martial body will definitely be upgraded to battle body. Among these 3 people, who can compare to me?" Everyone was secretly shocked. This was only the first day of the official admission, and the only one who spoke like this was probably Lin Tao. Of course, Lin Tao did have enough capital to say such words. Faced with the other party's questioning, He Qingyuan explained indifferently. The 3 people that Instructor Shilan wants to choose are not the strongest, but those who fit her teaching characteristics. What kind of excuse is that? I don't need to explain anything to you. Also, please don't talk to me with a condescending attitude. You don't have a right, Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong aura was released from He Qingyuan's body. The air was chaotic, and the sound of waves was heard. Everyone was shocked. Many people were oppressed by He Qingyuan's aura. Lin Tao's expression changed again and again. Facing He Qingyuan, who was in the 9th level of the element opening realm, Lin Tao indeed did not have much capital to be arrogant. With Lin Tao's talent and potential, it was possible that he would surpass He Qingyuan in the future. However, the gap between the two was too obvious, and Lin Tao did not have much right to speak. Song Chunglai and the other 30 or so instructors did not have any intention of stopping him. For arrogant newcomers, it was not a bad idea to give them a show of strength and sharpen their spirit. Lin Tao clenched his fists, and his face was gloomy. In the end, he forcibly suppressed the resentment in his heart. He Qingyuan sneered, turned around, and said, "The 3 who were chosen, please come with me." The surrounding crowd was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred as they watched Chu Hen and the other 2 follow He Qingyuan to another place. Song Chunglai shook his head and smiled, then said in a clear voice, "Everyone can start choosing the other instructors. Let me tell you, you don't have to choose the best instructor, but you have to choose the one that suits you the most." Yes, everyone nodded in agreement and began to communicate with the other instructors before making their choice. Of course, many people directly registered under the name of Instructor Shadowless. As another famous instructor in the Tensei Prefecture, even if Shadowless did not come today, everyone was willing to wait. On the other side of the plaza, let me introduce myself briefly. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on He Qingyuan's face. Li Hui, 7th level of the channel opening realm. The one who spoke first was the delicate and shy young man. Zhou Lu, 8th level of the channel opening realm. The girl in red looked more delicate, but her words were clear. Chu Hen, 9th level of the channel opening realm. As soon as Chu Hen finished speaking, a few people immediately looked at him in surprise. 9th level of the channel opening realm? He Qingyuan was also surprised. He did not expect this new student to be so low-key. Not bad. He Qingyuan nodded, then said, "From today onwards, you are Instructor Shilan's direct students. 3 or 4 times a month, Teacher Shilan will personally instruct you in your cultivation. As for the rest of the time, you can cultivate on your own, or you can listen to other instructors." The 3 of them nodded. "What are your weapons?" He Qingyuan suddenly asked. "Mine is a sword," Li Hui replied. "I use a long whip," Zhou Lu said. Chu Hen was stunned for a moment, then said honestly, "I don't have a weapon yet." "No weapon?" He Qingyuan frowned. "You can't do without a weapon. If you fight with an enemy of the same level, you will be at a great disadvantage without a weapon. You should first solve the problem of a weapon, then report to Instructor Shilan." Chu Hen nodded lightly, but felt that the other party's words were not without reason. Of course, the truth was that ever since Chu Hen came to the Imperial City, he had not been idle and did not have the time to choose a suitable weapon. After that, He Qingyuan gave a few simple instructions and left. Senior brother Chu Hen, senior sister Zhou Lu, please take care of me in the future, Li Hui said. No problem. Zhou Lu smiled faintly and replied with interest. But junior brother Hui, why is your personality like that of a girl? You speak so softly and meekly. I don't. Looking at the other party's embarrassed look, Zhou Lu covered her mouth and laughed. Chu Hen smiled slightly. I'll take my leave first. See you later. Okay, senior brother Chu Hen, see you later. Li Hui replied. Looking at Chu Hen's back, Zhou Lu said with some suspicion, do you think he really has the strength of a channel opening stage level 9? It can't be a bluff, right? It shouldn't be wrong. It's you? Would you lie to senior brother Qingyuan? All right, but looking at his appearance, it's probably from a pile of pills. Senior brother, Chu Hen didn't provoke you. Why are you saying that about him? TSK, can't I just say it casually? When Chu Hen returned to the area before the square, Mu Feng was already waiting for him. I'm really speechless. The spot that originally belonged to me was snatched by you. Mu Feng tilted his head and looked at Chu Hen, then grinned. Hee, but it's okay. I can still use Teacher Shadowless's name to woo one of the 6 pearls by UF first. I hope your dreams come true. Chu Hen replied lazily, then left the 7-star square in the direction he came from. The Bishop Minor selection was over, so there was no need to stay here any longer. Mu Feng raised his eyebrows proudly, then casually waved his hand, and a white chess piece was thrown out from his hand. Mu Feng had been holding this chess piece in his hand all along and only just remembered to throw it away. Ta! The chess piece fell to the ground and directly broke into pieces. Chu Hen was stunned. He saw that every piece that broke was actually the same size. What's wrong? Seeing Chu Hen's stunned expression, Mu Feng asked casually. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed, but before he could say anything, a few unfriendly figures suddenly blocked their way. To be precise, they blocked in front of Chu Hen. Chapter 36. Junior brother, there's something I want to discuss with you. A frivolous and mocking voice sounded as a few unfriendly figures suddenly blocked in front of Chu Hen and Mu Feng. The one in the lead was none other than this year's #1 newcomer, Lin Tao. What's the matter? Looking at Lin Tao's arrogant and proud face, Chu Hen replied coldly. Mu Feng, who was at the side, muttered in a low voice. Is there even a need to ask? This guy must be jealous that I'm more handsome than him. However, Lin Tao did not even look at Mu Feng. He stared at Chu Hen with a playful gaze and said in an irresistible tone, Give me your spot. Spot. This naturally referred to the spot to become Mentor Shi Lan's direct disciple. Hey, I say, aren't you being too much of a bully? Mu Feng stepped forward to stand up for Chu Hen. It's none of your business. Get lost. A young man behind Lin Tao reprimanded rudely. Mu Feng's body trembled. He coughed twice and replied weakly, Why are you so fierce? It's not like I can't hear you. Lin Tao ignored Mu Feng and continued to look at Chu Hen with a playful gaze. What if I don't agree? Chu Hen replied indifferently. Then it'll be much simpler. Who knows, when you wake up one morning, you might find that you're missing a leg or an arm. Lin Tao's words were full of threat. Chu Hen's eyes surged with coldness. I don't understand. I'm not the only one who got a spot. Why are you only looking for me? There's no reason. I just don't like you. Don't like you. A sneer appeared on Chu Hen's face. It seemed that in the past month, there were many people who didn't like him. However, Chu Hen did not want to waste time here with the other party. He did not say anything else and turned to leave. Whoosh! Suddenly, a heavy wave of air trembled, and a black heavy sword immediately blocked in front of Chu Hen. Lin Tao held the heavy sword in his hand, yet he did not even bat an eyelid. The corner of his mouth curled up in a dignified manner, filled with disdain. Seeing this, Mu Feng quickly said, F***CK, don't go too far. You even took out your weapon. Do you want to kill me? The instructors were still there. If you do this again, I'm going to call for help. Lin Tao continued to ignore him. The edgeless heavy sword in his hand blocked in front of Chu Hen like an iron chain crossing the river. If you don't hand over your quota, don't even think about leaving today. A good-for-nothing like you is not qualified to be Mentor Shilan's student. Although his tone was indifferent, it was full of aggressiveness. The few people beside him all revealed gloating smiles. Just as Mu Feng was about to call for Song Qinglai and the other instructors to help, a cold chill suddenly spread out from Chu Hen's body. Buzz, this was a frightening chill, and Mu Feng and the others could not help but be shocked. Before he could react, Chu Hen's sharp, icicle-like gaze pierced straight into Lin Tao's heart. I'll give you to the count of 3. Get out of my sight immediately. Otherwise, I'll break your dog legs today. The clear and heavy voice was like a sharp knife stabbing into their eardrums. If you can't bear it, then there's no need to bear it anymore. Feeling the fierce aura from Chu Hen's body, the faces of the people behind Lin Tao immediately turned pale. Even Lin Tao himself felt an inexplicable fear. However, as this year's newcomer king, Lin Tao, who had opened 9 martial meridians, would not be so easily frightened. Buzz, in the next moment, a surge of essential energy was released from Lin Tao's body. The brilliant essential energy climbed onto the blade of the heavy sword, transforming into dazzling golden patterns. A strong aura rose, and the chaotic airflow caused the space to tremble slightly. I'm sorry to tell you, but you have successfully angered me. Today I'll cripple you, you ungrateful thing. Lin Tao frowned, his killing intent rising. With a flick of his wrist, the heavy, edgeless heavy sword swept horizontally towards Chu Hen's throat. What's going on over there? At the same time, the busy instructors and students in the square were shocked by the commotion over there. Their gazes swept over at the same time, and they just happened to see the scene of Lin Tao attacking Chu Hen. Damn it, stop! The instructors did not even have the time to stop him, and the crowd could only watch as the miserable scene of Chu Hen being beaten half to death by Lin Tao immediately appeared in their minds. However, at this critical moment, there was not the slightest trace of fear on Chu Hen's face. Roar, accompanied by a low and dignified dragon roar, Chu Hen's aura rose in fury without any warning. The dust on the ground rose, and a shockwave spread out. Immediately after, an illusory golden dragon shadow swept out from Chu Hen's palm and solidly collided with Lin Tao's heavy sword. Boom! A particularly heavy explosion sounded out in the square, and a chaotic and powerful true essence rippled out between the two of them. In the next instant, under the astonished gazes of countless people present, Lin Tao's body violently shook and his eyes widened. The heavy sword in his hand was directly sent flying out of his hand. What? The appearance of this scene caused everyone to stare with their eyes wide open. Lin Tao's weapon had actually been sent flying by Chu Hen. Good heavens, he was a number 1 amongst the channel opening stage newcomers. However, what was even more shocking was yet to come. Lin Tao was shaken to the point of retreating, and at the same time, blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. What the crowd did not know was that what Chu Hen had just released was the core transformation stage martial art, the 9-Soul Dragon Seal. Even if it was barely executed, it was still enough to injure Lin Tao. Lin Tao was only able to stabilize his figure after retreating more than 10 steps. Looking at the heavy sword that had fallen to the ground, Lin Tao was unable to restrain his anger. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. Buzz, an even more surging aura leaked out from Lin Tao's body, and at the same time, an astonishing ruthless aura stirred the airflow in all directions. Humph! Chu Hen sneered. Do you think a piece of trash like you has the qualifications to point fingers in front of me? What did you say? As soon as his voice fell, Chu Hen immediately flashed out. His figure was like a ghost, and his steps were dazzling to the eyes. Lin Tao's pupils involuntarily shrunk. Before he was able to come up with any countermeasures, Chu Hen had already arrived at his opponent's left side. With lightning speed, he lifted his leg and kicked out, accurately landing on Lin Tao's left knee. Bang! The heavy landing sound was like a heavy hammer striking the hearts of the crowd. and everyone's pupils trembled. Lin Tao's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and the intense pain caused his entire body to start trembling. Lin Tao's left leg was bent inwards in almost 90-degree angle, and the bones at the knee were almost shattered. Ah! An incomparably mournful scream came from Lin Tao's mouth. His face was purplish red, and his blood vessels were bursting. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Kill him for me, Lin Tao roared angrily at the few followers behind him. However, the few of them were scared out of their wits, and they looked at each other like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow. Humph, stubborn fool. A cold light flashed in Chu Hen's eyes, and he slapped his opponent's face with the back of his hand. Bang! Lin Tao was directly sent flying by Chu Hen's slap, and he spun a few rounds in the air before falling heavily to the ground. Blood and broken teeth gushed out, and half of Lin Tao's face immediately swelled up. All kinds of intense pain attacked every part of his body, and Lin Tao raised his head with difficulty. He looked at Chu Hen with hatred and fear, and then his head tilted to the side, and he fainted. Silence, deathly silence. The huge square fell into silence. The air seemed to have frozen, and everyone's faces were pale, and their hearts trembled as they looked at the scene in front of them. He was really King Ruthless. He was beaten to the point that even his mother couldn't recognize him. No one expected Chu Hen to have such strength, and even more so, did not expect that this year's first place would have his legs broken in just a few moves, and he couldn't even get up. The other two people who had also obtained the direct student position of Minor Shilon, Li Hui and Zhou Lu, couldn't help but swallow their saliva. Just now, Zhou Lu was still doubting whether Chu Hen had the strength of a channel opening stage 9. In the blink of an eye, she got the proof. Mu Feng, who was closest to Chu Hen, had a blank face. He blinked a few times in a daze and blurted out, really got his legs broken. How dare you? How dare you make a move here? After a short silence, a few mentors rushed over to question them. One of them pointed at Chu Hen and said, "Follow me to the disciplinary hall. This is only your first day in the academy, and you're already acting so recklessly. I won't let you off today." Just as Chu Hen was about to explain, a gentle voice followed. "Wait, Mentor Song Chung?" Everyone was startled. The one who spoke was Song Chung Lai. He said, "We all clearly saw what happened just now. Chu Hen wasn't the one who made the first move. It was just a legitimate defense." A legitimate defense. Hearing this, everyone was even more surprised. Song Chung Lai was obviously speaking up for Chu Hen. Of course, what he said wasn't without reason. Everyone saw clearly that Lin Tao was the one who made the first move. But to be honest, Chu Hen's actions were a bit too ruthless. At the very least, Lin Tao would have to lie in bed for 1 to 2 months before he could completely recover. "Thank you, Mentor Chung," Chu Hen said with a tinge of gratitude. Song Chung Lai smiled slightly. "Let's talk about the matter at hand. If you really act recklessly in the academy in the future, I will also punish you." "Understand. There's nothing else. Go."